Hello? Where are you?
My name is Max. My world is fire and blood.
Why are you hurting these people? It's the oil, stupid.
Once I was a cop, a road warrior searching for a righteous cause.
There's the water wars.
The terminal freakout point.
Mankind has gone rogue, terrorizing itself. Thermonuclear.
As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to know who was more crazy, me or everyone else. Years after the collapse of civilization, the tyrannical Immortan Joe enslaves apocalypse survivors inside the desert fortress of the Citadel. When the warrior Imperator Furiosa leads the despot's 5 wives in a daring escape, she forges an alliance with Max. Fortified in a massive armored truck known as the War Rig, they try to outrun the ruthless warlord and his henchmen in a deadly, high-speed chase through the wasteland. Welcome to another feature presentation episode of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode, together with Floyd from the Pop List podcast, we're going to be covering 2015's Mad Max Fury Road, produced, written, and directed by George Miller. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Double Feature. We are back with the Pop List Floyd Frye. How you doing, Floyd?
Pretty good. How you guys doing? Back for more Mad Max, are we?
Back to fucking traversing the wasteland. I'm so glad to do this again with you guys. Colin, I'm here with Colin. Colin, how you doing, my man?
I am doing well. How you doing?
I am fucking well, dude. I'm so excited to jump into this movie, man. Holy shit. This is one that I've been like holding off to like cover for a while. Like this is on that list, that specific like little imaginary list that we have to like hold back on like whatever movie we're too afraid to cover yet.
Oh yeah.
So look, without any further ado, Floyd, how about you start off, man? You give us your thoughts on Mad Max Fury Road, as it were.
So, for any of the listeners that listen to the Road Warrior episode, I'm a huge Mad Max fan in general. So, I was very excited, a little maybe skeptical to what exactly George Miller was going to deliver to us after, what was it, like a 30-year hiatus?
Yeah.
Especially since, generally speaking, I think we all agree the third installment was the weakest of the first 3. So what's he going to come back with? What did he have? And for me, he showed up with 30 years of fantastic ideas. He is so good with the details of these worlds that he creates. And Fury Road is the pinnacle of that for me. As we go through the movie and get into some of these details and these characters, and it's just so rich and just so imaginative. And then to top that off, then you have this fantastic chase, pretty much the whole movie. I can't say enough about it, and how happy I was that it turned out to be what it was, and then happy for the movie makers that to end up getting some accolades for a sci-fi futuristic gritty Australian movie. So I love it.
Hell yeah. Colin, hit me.
Okay. Yeah, I never saw this when it came out in theaters. I do like this movie a lot. I think it has a couple of problems here and there. It's definitely not my favorite in the 4 Mad Max films. I do disagree with you, Floyd, when I think that the first Mad Max is the weakest in the thing, and in the original trilogy. I like the third one better than I do the first one. And I don't know if that's just because like stylistically there's and editing wise, like you said in the earlier earlier episode, you can kind of see George Miller develop into a better filmmaker. And I think the third one like really shows that. It has some crazy plot stuff, but I just like I like it a little bit more than the first one. But Road Warrior is definitely 100% my favorite one out of all of it. Like it's a very different movie than Fury Road. I mean, when you look at just like the simplicity behind the story and everything that goes on, like there's a lot more action sequences in Fury Road, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's bad at all. But it's interesting just to note the difference because we just came off of watching, Road Warrior and recording that. And then here we are doing Fury Road. And there's like a big difference between the two that I'm noticing. And it's not a bad difference. It's interesting to see George Miller, because some people, you take like Spielberg or George Lucas or, a lot of these older directors, and they go CGI and they go fucking crazy. And then you look at George Miller and, he went off and did like Witches of Eastwick and Happy Feet and Babe and like, what the fuck? Not Mad Max like kind of movies. So to see him not let that CGI like get to him and just go absolutely crazy with it, like over 80% of this movie is just like practical effects, and they use CGI like sparingly just when they had to. But I I like this movie a whole lot. I definitely own it. And it's definitely, I mean, it is a fucking Mad Max movie. It's not like it's got the same fingerprints, the same DNA, and I think it's really good. Like I said, there's some problems with it. There's some things about Tom Hardy I don't really love, but we can get into that when we do. But yeah, still a really great movie and a must for anybody who's a fan of. Even though it's kind of like the prequels of like Star Wars, but it's fucking good. It's like not a piece of shit. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is nice. Like after that trilogy of movies, I understand people's hesitancy to going back to something that's like 30 or 40 years old, but it's nice to see them not fumble the ball for once on something like that.
So I have to preface my thoughts with this. So we posted like a little announcement on Instagram, just being like, hey guys, we're covering this movie with Floyd from the Pop List, and Dean from LSG Media commented nice. And I'm just like, I'm feeling slightly intimidated after hearing you and Matthew cover these two movies, but we'll do our best. And Dean says, you're gonna crush it and maybe maintain some dignity, unlike Matthew and I suck off fest. Well, I'm sorry, Dean, but man, I don't know how we're gonna do that, because this, no matter how many times I rearrange my top 10, this never falls out of my top 10. This is absolutely one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
Nice.
And it is, honestly, without any fucking bullshit, you've got Terminator 2, The Matrix. This is one of my favorite action films of all time, if not the best action film of all time for me. It is just a masterclass in filmmaking, just the way it's shot, just the way it's paced. To me, like, there are no moments like where it slows down. There are moments where, we don't have a massive action sequence, but like the characters kind of get to know each other a little bit, or Furiosa finds out that the green place isn't real. But those things service the story. Like, there is no bullshit here. There's no fat on the edge. It's just all things that just service the story. People, when this was nominated for Best Picture, people like argued, but it has no story. It's all action. But really, man, like everything is story here. Like even the action, like the action paints a story. Like there are things in here that like ends up being like something that is pretty much like painting on this massive canvas that George Miller's like fucking constructed, dude. When I first saw this movie, I was floored. I saw this in the biggest screen in New South Wales at the time. It was a visual and auditory treat, and this remains one of the only 3 movies that I've seen in the movies 5 times. I absolutely adore this movie, dude. And I cannot be higher on this movie. This was, if you guys listen to the Road Warrior episode, I had not seen a Mad Max movie before this. This was my introduction to the world of Mad Max. So kind of like seeing the trailers for this and things like that, I was like, wow, that looks weird, but like it still looks cool. Meanwhile, I was like watching the rest of the Mad Max community lose their minds because like the trailer was very stylistic. It looked something that was totally different from the Mad Max that's come before. But really, I just kind of come at it from this angle of like, this looks unique, so I'm definitely going to go check it out. And man, like I was just hooked from the opening frame, like that beautiful opening frame. It is a movie that I revisit at least one once a year. Like I know it's only been out for like 4 years, but 4 years, by the way, already.
I know, right?
Wild. There's nothing else about it that I can really kind of like say about my thoughts, man. Like this is just, by the way, I wake up to this movie every morning. Like the poster, I have a poster in my room that's eye level to my bed.
I turn it on every single night to fall asleep, and it just keeps playing over and over again.
But dude, like the cinematography by John Seal, the music by Junkie XL, I do want to get into the music of this later, especially in a sequence that I'll bring up soon. But it's just I've never seen just the individual elements of movie making come together like this just so perfectly. And it's just beautiful. And number one, man, like just I was saying it in the Road Warrior podcast, it is so beautiful that this is Australian because we don't get many wins like this. I mean, like we don't get many filmmaking wins like this. We do get, acting wins like Cate Blanchett and Hugh Jackman and Nicole Kidman, but we don't get movies that are, kind of homegrown from an Australian director. I mean, sure, you can count Upgrade's Lee Whannell or James Wan. Lately, they're popping up more and more, but man, George Miller just absolutely nails it, dude. And by the way, like this guy, as famous as he is and as many like accolades as he's got, he's still for the Australian film industry. Like I went to a short film festival here last year called Tropfest. It's based in Western Sydney. Basically, it encourages young filmmakers to make short films, and it gets judged and things like that. And one of the judges was George Miller. Like he was there at Parramatta Park judging this short film contest, dude. Like it is it honestly, it kind of warms my heart to see this famous Australian icon go back and nurturing the filmmaking industry of Australia. It's fantastic.
That's pretty awesome. That really is pretty awesome.
Totally is, man. Totally. But not only
to your point about like how many times you've seen it. I went to the theater, watched it, really enjoyed it, told everybody about it, because obviously I was a Mad Max fan in general, but I didn't really realize the impact that it had on me and how much I really enjoyed it until it came out on HBO. And then I'm telling you, there was like 4 or 5 times where I'm flipping through and I would catch it and there was just no way I'm turning it. You know what I mean? I just sat there and watched it to the end. That happened to me multiple times and it really started sinking in. Like, this is a fantastic movie.
See, for me, like, it becomes one of those things where, holy shit, I enjoyed that so much in the cinema. I'm going to keep going and trying to relive this cinema experience as much as I can because it probably won't be re-released. So, like, that was my kind of like mind frame at the time. Like, I wanted to experience this as much as I could before it hit, like, home video, which, while it's good to watch it in 4K, it's not as mind-blowing as an experience as it is, watching it on the biggest screen in New South Wales, Plus, man, parts of this was shot at Penrith Lakes. Penrith Lakes is literally a 20-minute drive for me. It is. Wow. I was in Penrith yesterday. I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm there every week. It is my local city. Like, it's very, very close. And honestly, Floyd, I was telling you in the chat, I wasn't sure what part of this movie was shot at Penrith Lakes because most of this movie was shot in Namibia, but I actually did find out since then what part of it was shot at Penrith Lakes, and I'm going to hold that till later.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, man, this always makes my top 10 list of all-time movies. Like, this is 2015 was such a great year for film. Between this and Sicario, and like there was some great The Revenant. Like, holy shit, man, I remember like trying to like guess this like what was going to win at 2015's Oscars, and it was just so tough, man. It was like, holy shit, like, is it going to be The Revenant or is it going to be this, like, but yeah, this was nominated for 10 Oscars. It won 6: Best Editing, Costume Design, Makeup and Hairstyling, Sound Mixing and Editing, and Production Design. One little fucking piece of trivia that I had: Margaret Sixel, who is George Miller's wife, she was initially hesitant to edit the movie because she'd never edited an action film before, but George Miller said that if a guy did it, it would look like any other action movie. movie. And dude, she eventually won the Oscar for that year for best editing.
That's awesome.
That's fucking wild, man. She had over 470 hours of footage to cut, which is wild. John Seal, the cinematographer, came out of retirement to film this movie. Music, like I said, was by Junkie XL, aka Tom Holkenborg. He works with Hans Zimmer a lot. And this movie was stuck in development hell for years, with production starting as early as 1997. Miller tried to shoot it in 2001 and 2003, but the 9/11 and Iraq War happened. He said the American dollar collapsed against the Australian dollar and the budget just ballooned. We'll talk about why Tom Hardy was chosen later. But basically, what I love about this man, like Miller drew up the storyboard before writing the screenplay. Like that's wild. That's kind of unheard of.
Dude, the office they were in was just peppered and lined with fucking screenshots everywhere.
3,500 panels, which is nearly the same number of actual shots in the entire movie. Miller said he wanted the movie to be one long continuous chase with relatively little dialogue and to have the visuals come first. He paraphrased Hitchcock. He said that he wanted the film to be understood in Japan without the use of subtitles. And this kind of gets into the whole blood and chrome version, right? Floyd, the one that you were talking about off air for us.
Yeah.
So basically, that's a black and white version of the film, which is what George Miller wanted to shoot in the first place. But Warner Brothers executives kind of shut him down, just saying that, look, that's not going to appeal to mass audiences. So basically, George Miller's like, all right, I'm going to go the other way. And the blood and chrome version, I haven't seen it, but I know that he wanted to release the black and white version without the dialogue. Is that right? And just the music?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I did read something. I think it was like a rumor, but I'm not sure. Because he said I wanted to release it without dialogue and just music, just so it's kind of like this sort of like experience without any explanation. But I don't know how he would shoot that. So
go ahead.
Certainly, in Road Warrior and this, coincidentally, the movies that we're covering, George Miller definitely adopts a show 'em, don't tell 'em style, and does it as well, if not better, than anyone ever has, in my opinion, in both of those films. So, as you're speaking, he went into it with a vision. I think that if there's anyone that's critical of the non-speaking roles, or as much as we aren't actually didn't get any dialogue, but we all still get the story. Everything, it still carries on, and everything is shown to you, and you're understanding this plot as it's going through the film. So it's really master filmmaking, in my opinion.
It absolutely is, man. But look, that's my thoughts on it, man. Like, this is a unsurpassable movie, an unsurpassable action film, man. I can't. Whenever I hear stories about George Miller making a sequel to this, I get both excited and a little nervous because I'm like, George, I don't know how you're going to top that one. But then I guess that's what a lot of people said about The Road Warrior, right?
True.
So, guys, without any further ado, how about we just jump right into this bitch?
Let's do it.
Hell yeah. So, we open with not Mel Gibson, Tom Hardy. My name is Max. My world is fire and blood. Once I was a cop, a road warrior searching for a righteous cause. As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to know who was more crazy, me or everyone else. Here they are again, worming their way into the black matter of my brain. I tell myself they cannot touch me. They are long dead. I'm the one who runs from both the living and the dead, hunted by scavengers, haunted by those I could not protect. So I exist in this wasteland, a man reduced to a single instinct: survive. What do you guys think of this opening?
I love it. I think it's great. It's it's a good indication of seeing where Max is at now. Also, the state of the world. Max has really kind of like let himself go. The hair and the beard. The world is not nearly as like lush and green as it was before. It's got that real orange, red clay kind of look to it. So I thought it was really cool. What about you, Floyd?
Yeah, and it also sets up our primary issue within the movie, the water. Now we've moved from oil and gasoline to water. So water's going to be what everyone's fighting over. Certainly an issue that has as of late even has been something that some scientists and speculators have said might be something that we face in our lifetime or shortly thereafter. So another good move by Miller.
Boy. So yeah, man, like this opening shot is awesome. Like just the way it kind of like it's like a hard cut, and like it immediately like it sets out what this movie is going to be visually. Like it's not like this kind of of like, because Road Warrior is just in camera, like there's no special effects enhancing the landscape or anything like that. This is just let's turn everything up, the saturation and everything, and that's not a bad thing. Miller said that, you know, ever since Beyond Thunderdome came out, there's been so many post-apocalyptic movies. One of the notable ones that I was going to mention, Colin, was Book of Eli. You know, being kind of like a dreary sort of like post-apocalyptic movie. Even like Terminator Salvation, you know, it didn't really have that much kind of color to it. But Miller was like, I'm gonna, you know, pump everything up. I'm gonna make it look visually striking. I just thought that was a really cool thing, man. But yeah, not only Max isn't the only one that's kind of disheveled here. So is the Interceptor. So it's in pretty bad shape, man. So the left rear tire is filled with rags. The car sputters black smoke when he fires it up, and you can kind of see it's starting to be consumed by like some rust. So yeah, not happy days.
We also get from the first movements of the film, we can see that the world has now been started to be changed by the radiation.
Right, yeah, the lizard. Yeah, the two-headed lizard. Like, it's just like, it's a striking opening, man. Like, and he fucking eats it too.
That's why I love. I read something in an interview with George Miller that George Miller kind of had the foresight to do this. That he was like, you know, in the first two movies, in Mad Max 1 and then Road Warrior, there's no nuclear devastation. There's been no fallout or anything like that. But then sometime in between Road Warrior and Thunderdome, there is some kind of like cataclysmic nuclear thing, and that's when the shit just really starts like hitting the fan. And that's I think it makes sense in this movie why everything is like, because in the older movies, you know, it never really looked quite like this, like bare boned, you know, and now it's like, holy shit, like this is really desolate. Like this is just like dead land now.
Absolutely.
Well, and also the human physical deformities that we start to see as well.
Yeah, like the stuff on Nux. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Max takes up in the V8 Interceptor. I love that pause, that beat, until like, you know, then you start seeing the bandits just fucking come over the hill and chase them down. And the V8 Interceptor gets destroyed, man. It gets fucked up. This was a stunt. We were talking about him in the last episode. This was performed by Guy Norris. And basically he wanted to flip the car. He wanted to do a lot of flips. And what they did was they kind of like built this flap that would go under. It's kind of like a hydraulic flap. And like it would flip the car like over and over. It would be really powerful when the flap comes down. Pretty cool.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. Fucking this moment is awesome, but like we kind of get introduced to these like boomsticks that they have. Like they, like, you know, we see him throw it and it just fucking blows it up. And Max gets fucking dragged out to the fucking wasteland. This is brutal.
Dude, I said this in Road Warrior, but I said, you know, like I'm a big fan of the game, and like these like exploding sticks that they throw, like that's what they hit him with, right? To flip the car over. They're called thunder spoons. I'm like, dude, the names of all the shit in this universe is so interesting, man. I love it. You know, like it's got this crazy speech to it that's just like, it's so distinct and it's so its own. It's just like this. Is this what all Australian names are like? I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is so weird. This is my only window into this world.
No, dude, it's just fucking George Miller being George Miller.
Okay.
And it's weird. It's weird kind of to say this, but those names and the descriptions and things like that, it's weird how it adds to the world. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Totally. Like this whole kind of like, we're a little uneducated, so we're just going to name it something pretty basic, but still weird at the same time. Yeah, I just call these guys fucking uneducated. Great.
Well, they do literally huff paint and jump from car to car.
That's true, and they all do think they're going to fucking Valhalla. But yeah, let's talk about this like shooting location for a sec. So originally Miller wanted to go back to Broken Hill where he shot the Road Warrior, but it rained, and you know there was flowers growing there, wildflowers, and he was just like, well, sorry, I can't really film a post-apocalyptic film out here. And eventually they found the Namib Desert in Namibia, and it just fucking worked, dude. Like it honestly looks beautiful. Like the landscapes in this sequence, in this entire film, look fantastic.
Yeah, oh, dude, absolutely.
Fucking hell yeah. But yeah, we find out in the next scene that Max is a universal donor. That comes in pretty handy later. And we meet, so this guy, this actor, he's from a few things. His name's Angus Sampson. Do you recognize him, Colin? Is this guy with the beard?
He looked kind of familiar. That's a hell of a name, though. Angus Sampson.
Yeah. So in this movie, his name is the Organic Mechanic. But this actor is from Insidious, actually. He is one of the two paranormal guys. The other one is Lee Winnell, who is, so yeah. So they're both Australian. And he's also from Fargo season 2, if you've seen Fargo. But yeah, he's awesome. He's a great Australian actor.
I do recognize him from Fargo.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I know exactly who that is. Yeah.
From the second season. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And man, fucking Max just breaks out here, and this is where we get this is where it's most apparent, I think. The big issue that was for me in Road Warrior, the really sped up for kind of like frame rate.
Oh my god, dude. Like this whole scene, man. Come on. Like like I said in Road Warrior, it's practical. You need it to speed the cars up. I get it. But this like whole entire scene is like sped up. Like, geez, dude, give me a break.
It's a bit rough.
No,
what do you think,
I see with it being the guys or people rather than the vehicles, it doesn't bother me as much in this scene. It doesn't. When it shows the vehicles, it seems a little more goofy to me.
I think I agree with
I don't know,
Floyd.
something about that. There's something about that with the humans, and they're just kind of running through there. It's just showing like a frantic stage or whatever. It didn't bother me as much for whatever reason.
I think I do agree with you, Floyd. Just because, especially because what Max is kind of going through here, he's kind of a bit, disheveled. He's like, where the fuck am I? Number one, like, you know what I mean? His mind is probably racing like a million miles a minute. And it just, I think like even in the water, like sometimes like, when they're in the water later, it looks all right. It looks a little better than the cars taken off in Road Warrior. I think it's also worthy to mention as well, like Max keeps seeing people that he's failed. That's like, we can't skip past that. So basically he's seeing this ghost or like an image of like someone in his mind, a little girl. Later you get this Aboriginal guy. It's just people that he's basically failed to save. So yeah. But yeah, so Max eventually escapes, hops onto a crane, but he's recaptured. And then we get the title sequence. Dude, this was a great opening. What'd you guys think of this entire sort of like 5-minute opening to this movie? Setting the scene pretty well, hey?
You go ahead, Floyd.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I like movies that start before they start, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as a Mad Max aficionado, of course, going through these scenes the first time and even later times when I watch it, I'm kind of trying to piece it together. Like, so did this happen recently? Was this something that happened years ago? These people that are popping up, especially the girl. The girl pops up a lot. So is that a story that'll be told in later sequels? Who knows? But yeah, those were my thoughts through that, trying to kind of piece together this world and where he's at in his mindset, where he's at with his humanity, and what are his goals now, and what's he trying to accomplish aside from staying alive, of course. But liked the setup, get you going, adrenaline. It started right off the get go and didn't stop
for sure. After the credits, we meet Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron. So when this came out, I remember there was a bit of there was some backlash because it's like Furiosa is the main character, not Max. I disagree, but what do you, Colin? You give me your thoughts on this, and then Floyd, you go, because we got to talk about this.
It doesn't bother me at all because going back on it and watching them now, my only gripe about this movie is like the biggest thing is like, and hey, I don't make movies for a living. I'm not George Miller. I'm not a filmmaker. So this is just my 2 cents. But like the story that's more interesting to me is like, let's say they kept Mel Gibson. We have a much older Max at this point. And I've kind of like wanted that out of this now because I get the whole thing about him wanting redemption and stuff like later on, but what I thought would have been such a better story is we have an older Mad Max, and then towards the end of this movie, Max dies, and it just becomes the story of like Furiosa, like moving on from that. Like if this were a spinoff movie, if it were just like, if they ever just make the Furiosa movie, dude, I'll be right there. That's it. Like I don't have any problem going and seeing, we don't mind a solo, spinoff movie. We don't mind like all these other characters getting spinoff shows and spinoff movies and stuff like that.
Oh, people minded the Solo spinoff.
Oh yeah, for sure. But like on principle, people didn't mind it. It wasn't like, oh, because it's this person or because of a certain thing about this person. So yeah, I mean, I think there's plenty of people that are that are like, oh man, yeah, it's a woman. What the fuck, blah blah blah. But I mean, I don't have any problem with it because I mean, we can only watch Mad Max do that same shit over and over again for so long before it's like, okay, we need to put some kind of other interesting characters in here. And that's just my 2 cents. I kind of wish it had been Mel Gibson, and then we really see. I think we would feel that character arc like so much more. And it's kind of odd that like they show the little girl because Max has a little boy. Like he doesn't have a little girl. Like I know it's like other people that he's probably failed, but at the same time I was like, that's just like it's just odd that they show the little girl more than anybody else. So because I'm thinking there's an emotional connection there. It's probably his kid, but I remember him having a boy, so it always like that part always kind of threw me off. But no, I don't have any problem with Charlize Theron in this. I think she could hold an entire movie on her own. But what about you, Floyd?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I have to say about it is I can understand people kind of being bothered if they think that this character was put in place and created due to, social media backlash as far as men in films and women in action films and those types of things. Yeah. But the only thing that I am ever left with when this discussion is ever brought up is I just say it never even occurred to me. I mean, there's actors and there's actresses and there's, supporting actors. And I watched the movie and loved it for what it was, and no like ulterior motives or reasons that these actors or characters were created. It just never occurred to me. I enjoy the movie for what it is.
See, I had the same exact reaction that you did, Floyd. Like I was just like, well, first time I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, it's Furiosa. She's a fucking badass, by the way. She's played fantastically by Charlize Theron. And then I remember like a few weeks after this, I just like seeing like so much kind of like online backlash about, this not being Max's movie and things like that. But I'm like, is the Road Warrior really Max's movie as well? like, I mean, he's got 16 lines, like he helps out and like what? Like, I mean, how is it exactly his film? Like, you know what I mean? It's just, I think Max works fantastically as a more of a supporting character more than anything else. Like he's just kind of like this person who assists Furiosa in getting these women to the green place. And, when that goes to shit, it's just like, I'm going to do the right thing here and step in. And, I just think he works better as a supporting character. I don't know. And also Tom Hardy. So Tom Hardy, he was chosen because Mel Gibson didn't want to come back. And because Miller said, there was a lot of controversy around Gibson as well. Of course, he had a lot of issues with, his anti-Semitism rants, I guess. And basically Miller wanted someone younger and someone who remained the same age as we last saw him. And to put it in Miller's words, the same contemporary warrior. So that's why I guess he chose Tom Hardy. And look, Tom Hardy's, I think he's fantastic in the role. I think, it's not really a role that is suited to any one actor. Like Mel Gibson is great physically and the way, he comes across with things, but I think Tom Hardy does a great job filling the shoes. What do you guys think about Tom Hardy?
Well, I think it's also just, it's not unprecedented that you would make a move like that to keep the character, at a consistent age. I mean, we all know a little series called James Bond.
Right,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? So I don't have a problem with it. I love Mel. I loved Mel as Mad Max and his interpretation of that character. Would I have liked to have seen him come back and see a more salt and peppered Mad Max trying to make it in the wasteland at an older age? Of course, that sounds entertaining and something that I would like being an old school fan. But had no problem with Hardy, and I think he did a pretty good job.
Absolutely.
I like Hardy pretty well. Like I think there's I wish he had a little bit more of an Australian accent, to be honest, just because like that's, I mean, obviously like the movies are set in Australia, but it's like, I mean, it's like one of your country's biggest icons. Like, would you agree? Like to me, like that's
it is.
It's like I wish I don't want him to but I wanted just a little bit more, because it was like, man, that's his accent's like so faint. It's like there's almost nothing on it sometimes. I mean, don't get me wrong, the dude barely says anything, and that's not really a huge gripe. But it's something about it, even like we said, their type of speech, but also at the same time their dialect behind it makes it super interesting. And I fucking love Australian accents. And it's a lot of fun to like try and impersonate and do one. And I wanted that. Good. Shut up. I wanted just a little bit more out of him,
All right. Well, I get what you're saying, but is this also set in Australia? Like, is the Wasteland Australia?
I mean, isn't literally everybody else like Australian?
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, is the Wasteland actually Australia, or is the Wasteland just like some nondescript, like, landmass?
I would argue that it is Australia. I mean, unless you're going totally different, like universe, like this isn't Earth or something, because I would argue it's Australia just for the simple fact of the natural inhabitants. You have a kangaroo in Road Warrior. You have a cattle dog. Even
that's
the
true.
Rabbits and the snakes and those types of things. So I would argue that it's Australia.
Yeah, all right, so I'm wrong. Fine.
Wrong about your own country.
Yeah, all right. We meet the villain of the piece, right? Fucking, holy shit, I'm having a mind blank on his name. Immortan Joe.
Oh my God.
Holy shit. Immortan Joe, played by Hugh Keays-Byrne, who is coming back for a new role. Floyd, you can probably tell me who he played in the original.
The toe cutter.
Toe cutter. Yeah, he's back, man. Dude, I love Immortan Joe. I love his design. I love his voice. I love his car. Colin, give me your thoughts on fucking. What are you thought on fucking Immortan Joe, dude?
He's all right.
Really?
I mean, he's a cool villain. I don't have any like, oh my God, this just like blew me away. Blah blah.
Like, he's not Vader, but
Right. But I mean, he's like more so than like, man, that's a badass villain. It's like, dude, you're fucking gross and you're creepy. Like, they're like, I think that's kind of the point with a lot of his like family members and stuff. Like his like smaller, like kind of stunted growth son, whatever, like the smaller guy in the chair. The bigger guy that plays Rictus, I think that guy's name is like Nathan Jones or something.
Nathan Jones, yeah.
So I met him. I was at the Louisville SuperCon where we met like Jonathan Frakes from Next Generation. We met like LeVar Burton. Like, we met a couple of people, and fucking Richard Dreyfuss was there, and Ralph Macchio, and like a shit ton of people. And as I was walking out, I look over, and right at the corner there's Nathan Jones. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a decently sized person. I'm like 6'4" and like 300 pounds. Like I'm a good sized dude. And I was like looking so far up to talk to him. Like I felt dwarfed, like insanely dwarfed by this guy. And I was like, you are fucking huge. And like, that's not like I've met plenty of people who are bigger than me, but that's not a very common thing. And when it's somebody that big, I was like, whoa, like that's kind of weird. And I was just like, hey dude, I loved you in Fury Road. He's like, oh, thanks, man. Blah, blah, blah. He was like, he's like, you want to take a picture or anything? I was like, no, dude, we're actually about to hit the road. I just wanted to say hey and just left. But he's a fucking nice guy, but he's massive, dude. Huge guy.
Damn, son. Holy shit. I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, so saving that one for this episode.
He kind of scares me in this, man. He's just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, we're introduced to his kids as well in this sequence. The guy that says "rev it up" for the Immortan Joe, who also fights Furiosa at the end, like, he kind of hisses at Furiosa. He is one of the stunt coordinators. He also literally like helped Furiosa, Charlize Theron, like the fight, like in terms of choreography with Tom Hardy in that sequence later when they fight. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, I do want to point out that this actor who plays the son of Immortan Joe, the smaller guy, his name's Quentin Kenahan, the actor. He passed away last year, unfortunately. He had that disability. I don't know the name of it, but he played Corpus Colossus in this movie. That was his name. And rest in peace, man. Like, I know that he had a book that came out, so I would actually like to have a read of that. So yeah, quite sad. But yeah, so basically you get Immortan Joe feeding the masses, right? Or watering the masses, rather. This guy, holy shit. Like, he's got so much power. Like, this is not like you said, Floyd, fuel isn't power, it's all water. And like, just the fact that it can change from one thing to the other is awesome. What do you think about this whole water is power, basically, you know, letting him have basically just nothing, literally nothing. What do you think about this?
Well, we can obviously all live the rest of our lives literally without gasoline. We can't live the rest of the week without water, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, that is the most important substance probably on Earth, especially when you're in a situation where it's post-apocalyptic and you're fighting and scrounging for everything. Got to have water, and if you're the guy that controls the water, then you're controlling everyone.
Right. Yeah, I really like this because there's the bullet farm, there's the gas town, so it's like there's all these places to get those artificial things. But he kind of has that now with this pump that he's pumping out of like the earth and stuff, but it's not something that, like, I'm sure it's a lot easier to somehow figure out the gasoline and the bullets than it is to figure out, like, how do you just make more water? Like, you can't just like make it like you do other stuff. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. It's cool that like this shift is off of gasoline now, because I mean, like I said, we have two towns literally that do nothing but fucking make bullets and gasoline. So it's kind of
right.
it's an interesting flip on the script.
Right. And in this sequence, we find out that Furiosa is taking the war rig to Gastown to bring back more gasoline. This war rig, dude, so it is a 78-foot 18-wheeler that's based on a Tatra T815, which is an all-wheel drive truck manufactured in the Czech Republic, and they built 3 fully functional war rigs for this movie.
Jesus.
This thing is massive. Josh Hellman, who plays Slit, he saw this thing and he's just like, whoa, this thing is intense. It just looks like a monster on wheels, basically. So we see, I love this shot of like Furiosa on the road, and like, you know, up ahead you see Gastown, and behind them you see the Citadel communicating with Gastown via that, you know, old school light, you know, you just using the reflection of the mirror. Pretty cool.
I thought that was that was the case, but I wasn't 100% sure. But I was like, I'm pretty sure they're given like the old reflection kind of signal thing, you know?
Well, they can't just pick up a phone and call him.
Oh yeah, that's true. I guess they don't have any carrier pigeons.
Send a raven. Yeah, but Furiosa pulls off, man, and holy shit, this is basically where things go wrong. But I love that, you know, these war boys that are with her, they're not sure. They have no idea yet. Like they're kind of like going on with Furiosa's thing. Like they're just like, what is this detour? They're a little confused. Like
it shows you though also the power that and the trust that Furiosa has.
Right. It definitely says that.
I mean, she makes this weird left-hand turn, and they're just like, "Go ahead, where are we going?"
Right. You get a sense that she's truly like on the top of the food chain, somewhere up there, right?
Yep.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. We get this weird shot of the mother's milk, like the big old titties.
That's a little jarring at first. I'm like,
Yeah, because it starts like fully zoomed in and then it pulls out. This mother's milk is a thing, we find out. But Immortan Joe sees that Furiosa's pulled away from the Gastown route, and then he kind of like puts 2 and 2 together, right? He's like, holy shit, where are the wives? And he runs down to the vault. But on the way, dude, like, did you notice, like, you know, this green garden that he has?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's kind of like one of these like really quick, like blink and you miss it details. Like just how much, like how lavishly this guy's living. Like, you think about another place where you can find a green place like this in the city, in the wasteland. Like, he's just like, I've got my own private stock of gardens.
Right. And part of me, sorry, go ahead, Floyd.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Colin.
Well, part of me also too, like, is it something, because he obviously doesn't always have that oxygen mask on, and he doesn't always have that stuff on. Is it something to do with like the plants releasing like fresh oxygen or something? Is it like something that he keeps them in there, or like does it help him breathe better or something? Like, I mean, that's just, I know that's kind of a stretch, but I was like, it's kind of odd. Like, does he have it just to like have it and say, oh, cool, here's like these plants that I have, or is it like specifically food that he's growing there? I didn't really. Yeah, it is a very blink and you miss it kind of thing. So I couldn't really figure out exactly what it was.
I think it's food. I've always assumed that it was food growing there.
Okay. Yeah. I thought it was food, but terms of his mask, I mean, when they're putting it on, we can see that he's already kind of like diseased, or he's got something. He's already fucked up. I kind of like get a sense that, you know, although he doesn't need to keep this mask on like the entire time, like it kind of helps him. It kind of helps him with the pain. It might be like a constant painkiller or something like that, like Bane.
I could see that.
Well, that's what I was going to originally say when I started to interrupt y'all, and I'm sorry.
No,
This shot where he runs down to check out realizes that the wives aren't there. That we get a really good look at his whole getup, and it's so crazy. It brings up all these questions, like why is he wearing this like see-through armor? Why does he have these boils on him? Where did he get these metals that's on his armor? Why is he wearing this mask? Why does it have teeth on it? Why is he wearing like something like culottes or something, like some sort of like skirt or something? I don't even know what that is he's wearing. It's good and bad because it brings up all these questions, but it also makes it such a complicated character.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's just so many questions, but like there could be so many answers considering that it's the wasteland, you know? So we get to this old lady who's basically fucking about to blow Immortan Joe away. And she's just basically like, you know, she didn't take them. They wanted to go, and fucking Immortan Joe just manhandles her. Wouldn't want to be her. And we meet Nux, played by Nicholas Hoult. Floyd, what do you think about Nux?
I think Nux is a character that is looking for his place, even though he is a war boy and he follows these things. I still think he feels like he's out of place or doesn't quite have the acceptance that maybe some of the others do. So he's still striving for that, which I think later comes into play, that he isn't quite accepted into his role.
Right, I couldn't have put it any better myself. Colin, what are your thoughts on Nux?
I'm not fucking following that. No, I'm just kidding. No,
because I couldn't follow it, so I just passed it on to you, dude.
Yeah,
I'm just
thank you so much.
Take the ball.
No, I like Nux as a character. I think it's another person that has like a really good arc in it. And yeah, like what Floyd said, you know, he doesn't quite fit in. Also, at the same time of like I don't really see a whole lot of other people except for like Immortan Joe and Rictus, you know, in the Colossus, like, or, you know, his whole family really being kind of ill. Like Nux is the only one that I really see with like literally he's got two fucking big, you know, Harry and Larry, like the big tumors like right on the side of him. So like, you know, like he's the only one that's like sitting there. That's when he's like, you know, if you can't stand, you can't war. And it's he's like, yeah, he's right, you can't go. And he's the only one that's like not up and on his feet. So I like him as a character just because it's like the thing that you want the most, just like right there. And you know, the way that they've been like trained to do this, you know, and after a while, I think it's interesting, the dynamic of like seeing somebody who kind of goes through that transition of like, oh yeah, all that religious stuff that I kind of believed in is like not real. Like, oh, that's an interesting and kind of difficult character to tackle, but they do it pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought it was like, it's kind of cool how they've adopted this Norse mythology into their little following, into whatever the Citadel has got going on here.
Yeah,
like the gates of Valhalla, and you know this need to self-sacrifice themselves. So like Immortan Joe is kind of like sort of brainwashed these, I guess, kids, right? You know, I live, I die, I live again. It's kind of cool. Like, you know, it's kind of a story that doesn't need to be explicitly told, but you can kind of infer what's going on. So yeah, I think Nicholas Hoult is a great actor, man. Like, I watched a movie with him last night. I'm ticking off my Oscar list. I watched The Favorite. By the way, it's not amazing. It's not for everyone, but Nicholas Hoult is in it, and he's great, man. I've always found him to be a great actor, even in X-Men, from, you know, First Class to Apocalypse. But this other guy, Josh Hellman, he could totally play the Joker, like with that smile. You notice? No?
You're talking about like the where he has like the
staples,
big crazy like staples in his face. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's from X-Men: Days of Future Past as well. Like, he plays Colonel Stryker.
Oh.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good Australian actor. But yeah, like basically they're arguing with each other. You know, Nux hears the war boys start to, you know, gear up and head towards Furiosa. I love this shot of like, you know, the steering wheels just all piled up like everywhere. Like basically it's just like, take your own steering wheel and let's go. It's awesome, dude. And basically Nux wants to die glorious on the Fury Road. And then, you know, basically Slit and Nux get into an argument, and Nux says, you know what, I'll take my blood bag. And I love this shot of just like Tom Hardy just kind of like upside down being like, what the fuck are they talking about? Great. And then hard cut to fucking Tom Hardy on the front of that fucking car. Jesus. And dude, this is where we get wild. Like this kind of shot that pans down from Tom Hardy down to Nux to Slit on the back of the car, and then it like goes past the the Duff wagon, which is what it's called. And we see this guy playing the guitar, who is actually a real Australian guitarist, with real flames shooting out of that fucking guitar. And we get this sense of like how big this war party is. Wow. Just wow. This is something else.
I mean, and like, not to mention what they've done to like Max's Interceptor. I'm like, oh, you fucking bastards, dude. Like they've like chromed it and put like some crazy shit on the back of it. I was like, oh, that's fucked up. Because he even says, he's like, they've taken my blood, now they've taken my car. Like somehow car comes second to the blood.
Yeah, what they've done is like they've I was watching the special features, they've raised it like so, you know, it can be better used for the wasteland. So like, you know, the chassis is a bit higher, and you know, it's all shiny and chrome, like, you know, the war boys look up to, and also cute little detail, there's barbed wires going along the headlights now. Pretty awesome. Pretty badass, man. This Duff wagon, by the way, was originally a Soviet missile launching truck.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's been like repurposed and redone. Like, it's crazy, dude. This we see the Immortan Joe's car, which is called the Giga Horse. This thing is crazy. It's built from scratch, with a body of two 1959 Cadillac Coupe de Villes sitting on top of each other. Peter Pun, the concept artist, said that it's the king's vehicle, so it had to be spectacular. The 59 Cadillac was chosen because I always thought it represented authority and status. And man, this thing is beautiful. This fucking talk to me about this scene, guys. Floyd, what do you think about this scene? About like how, you know, we get to see Immortan Joe's war party. We're introduced to this basically chaos, right?
Absolutely. One thing that always jumps out at me in this is all the vehicles have now, for one reason or another, and two things come to mind. For one reason or another, they're not 70s and 80s vehicles anymore. The majority of them are more like 30s and 40s vehicles. So I don't know if that's telling us that they've destroyed everything, so now they continue to go back and get older vehicles that they're building, or if those older vehicles are more sturdy, more reliable, heavier, you know, that type of thing. But for whatever reason, a lot of the vehicles in this are definitely modeled after much older vehicles than the previous Mad Max films. But absolutely, you know, George Miller's a master, of course, at action and directing action. And, you know, I'm sure most people, if they enjoy this movie, have probably heard the stories about the different things that he did. You know, he made everything as practical as he could. And also, I think some of these injuries and some of these people, most action movies are going to see someone get shot and kind of roll over or roll off a vehicle or something. You're seeing a lot of like arrows actually sticking in people, and people even surviving getting shot and having these wounds and things. Very graphic, very visceral, fantastic action sequence, and the chase is on now, right?
Hell yeah, dude. Like this, we go from this sequence until from here to the end of the sandstorm, which is a long sequence. This just kicks off. One of my favorite shots, dude, is this overhead shot, like way in the background. You see the war rig, and then like in the foreground, these flares come up, and you start to see like Immortan Joe's like squad just closing in on the war rig. Just Miller has this thing about like placement, like, you know, where everything is inside the scene. Like, you know, in a lot of action movies, it is very easy to lose track of like where things are. But man, in this movie, it is so easy to track where everyone's moving and where all of the vehicles are at whatever time. It's great. It's fantastic. But yeah, like this is a fantastic sequence. Like this is basically, you see the war boys start to get a little bit of a heads up. They see the flares, and they ask, you know, back up, decoy, and she says it's a detour. And this is where we get the buzzards. Holy shit, the buzzards. These things look insane.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit, man. Colin, give me your thoughts on the buzzards.
Well, yeah, and these are terrifying things to come across in the game. They just like fucking pop up out of the ground sometimes, and you just like, it always scares the fuck out of me. But I love the design of them. They're very like
porcupines.
Yeah. Like all their vehicles always have that same kind of effect. They remind me of like kind of like Tusken Raiders from
nice.
like Star Wars. Like they definitely remind me of because they're the ones that are popping off shots during the pod racing and shit like that too, right? Aren't those Tusken Raiders? Right. So they definitely remind me of like Tusken Raiders in a way, but I can dig them.
Hell yeah.
You guys ever seen a weird kind of cult movie called The Cars That Ate Paris?
No.
It's very reminiscent. These vehicles are very reminiscent of the cars in that movie. It's a weird movie. I'm not even necessarily suggesting it, but you can look it up. Called The Cars That Ate Paris. It's a weird cult movie.
Badass. That's such a Floyd movie. But we get our first casualty, man. Like, I love this booby trap. This rope just comes up, and then you get this like side-on shot of this car just doing this flip, man. Holy shit. And you see the buzzards just starting to make their move. You get this side-on shot of like the buzzard behind him just like running into this like motorcycle, and the motorcycle goes flying. This entire sequence is fantastic, man. You see these what are these pole explosion things called, Colin, again? Something spoons?
Thunder spoons.
Holy shit. We see the actual damage that these things can do. Like, you know, you got the war boys at the top throwing the thunder spoons from above, and man, just the way these like buzzards just go flying. Holy shit. And you know what I love? I love this reveal of this massive buzzard truck just blasting through the debris. Like, we never knew it was there, but it's just like following them the entire time. And like Miller reveals it when he wants to reveal it. It's fantastic. And it's basically like this fucking building truck with like this arm, man. Like, holy shit. And we just see the Immortan Joe's like crew start to swarm in, and it's this entire sequence. I can't talk higher about this sequence. This is such a great way to start the film, and such a great way to start the chase.
I love because the war rig, you're like, man, that's really formidable, and then this thing just like comes like ripping out. You're like, Jesus Christ. Like it kind of gives me like a T2, like when he's like the whole flat front of that thing is what reminds me of like T2, that type of like 18-wheeler that's chasing him down. Like, I've always thought those like flat ones were almost kind of scarier looking, because it was just like instead of like, you know, like we even saw at the end of like Road Warrior, you can like hang on to the hood of something that has like an engine sticking out of the front of it. When it's those flat ones, it's just like getting hit by a fucking brick wall, basically.
The movie Duel?
Yes, dude. I actually, that's based off a short story by Richard Matheson, and I got the book that had a bunch of Richard Matheson stories in it. So I just read that like a month ago. It's crazy you said that.
Floyd, I just lost interest because that's directed by Ridley Scott, so not dealing with that. Wait, no, that's Steven Spielberg, right? My bad.
Spielberg.
Yeah, motherfucker.
Fuck, I knew it was someone big. I was just like, you see this war boy get harpooned, and then he starts doing this ritualistic thing, right? Basically, he takes this, what is this, kind of like silver paint?
Yeah, I was reading a little bit about that, and the actor that plays Immortan Joe, I cannot remember that guy's name.
Hugh Keysburn.
Yeah, he said that it was kind of like it's supposed to be just like, you know, you'll go into the, you know, halls of Valhalla, shiny and chrome, blah blah blah, but it is like a euphoric kind of drug. Like it does kind of keep them like hyped up when they're doing this shit. It's definitely something that drugs them up.
See, I kind of like this idea of like that Joe's kind of deceiving them a little bit as well. Like it's this whole, you know, I'm gonna make you believe in this so you can go 100% on the battlefield, you know. I just think it's fantastic. But man, this stunt is great. Like this guy with the two I'm gonna forget what these fucking things are called, these spoons or whatever the fuck. I'm just gonna keep calling them like explosion sticks or some shit. I don't know.
Thunder spoons.
Thunder spoons. Whatever. I'm not living in the wasteland. Oh wait, actually I am. He jumps off, man, fucking double fisting those spoons, and man, like there's a great like behind the scenes sort of like documentary on the DVD, and it shows how they did this. Basically, so you got the war rig, and then you've got another rig on top of the war rig. Like it's just all this rigging and wiring, and like there's like 4 cameramen on the top, and like you've also got this like 2 safety harness guys that are holding this guy up via like rigging. And obviously before he lands, he doesn't impale himself. himself. Like they catch him, but like in the next shot, it's just like the explosion, and it's just such a great stunt, and it's so well shot, man. Just this side-on view, holy shit.
That's also the guy I was kind of referring to before too. I mean, he catches that fucking arrow in the face, man, and that is just, it's so graphic.
Right.
It's tough to watch that.
Right. Witness me! And then they're all just like mediocre. Like, what is this? What language are you speaking?
Yeah, and how is that mediocre? I don't understand that. Like, what is like 5-star? What is your 5-star death review? Like, do I have to do a backflip first or say something cool? Like what gets me in beyond mediocre?
Right, I would have just been like, that's fucking epic. But yeah, we get this really quick shot of one of the wives going through the, like, from the back, from the tanker to the cab, and man, like the way this truck buzzard like hitches, it gets his like sort of hook stuck on top of the cab of the war rig, and then it explodes and it pulls away in that beautiful shot. Holy shit. Like, you see that war boy just flying off randomly. God damn. Woo. This movie's got me sweating.
There are a couple scenes in this I think that we would be remiss to not talk about where you can, it's not a good thing. You can tell a couple scenes that this was made as a 3D movie. I think you can tell where sometimes when the images are coming straight at the picture. It's not horrible, but every time I watch it, I kind of forget, and then I remember like, oh, that's right, this was 3D. Yeah,
was this so are you talking about like Jaws 3D shit where, like, you know, things fly at you and it's like, oh, look at that.
Right. This was full 3D.
Yeah, I can't remember if I saw it or not. Like, yeah, back in the day when fucking 3D movies were the shit, right?
Yeah.
I do remember like one sequence that you're talking about later when Slit gets caught between the two trucks when he's in that interceptor and he just like flies towards it. Yeah. But man, this is a standout sequence for me. This is such a great way to start the film, and I love the reveal of this storm. Basically, it's in the background the entire time, but just the way Miller reveals it, it's this massive wide shot. Like, he keeps pulling out, and you just see the scale of the storm, and you see the cars just approaching it. It's just the most beautiful shot in the movie for me. Well, what do you guys think of this approaching the storm sequence?
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely, it's awesome. There's certain things like, I remember when I went out to Seattle one time and I was driving down from Seattle and I could see kind of like some mountains over, kind of on the horizon. And then as I'm driving, and then I notice, which ended up being Mount Rainier, it's like so massive above these other mountains that as I describe it to people, like, it's something that was so big, it was scary. And even though I know the mountain, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's how it is. That's how it is with that storm. I mean, this storm is like off the screen. You know what I mean? And coming from the ground level, it's just incredible. Even if the storm itself wasn't dangerous, it just is so massive. It's just terrifying.
As they're approaching, oh no, go Colin. Go.
Oh no, I was gonna say that storm is like walking out to a beach and seeing a tidal wave from like end to end. You're just like, holy shit!
It's like walking into a tsunami.
Yeah, I went to the first time. I went to the ocean for the first time since I was like 4 or 5, so I don't even remember it. But this was like, I think like 2 years ago, I went for the first time, and I was like, that's something. It reminded me of Red in Shawshank Redemption. He's like, well, shit, something that big, terrifying. You know, it'd just be like something that huge is so fucking like terrifying to me. I'm like, oh, good Lord. Like, just when you're looking at something and from one corner of your right eye all the way over to the corner of your left eye, it's in full vision. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, that's scary as shit.
Like, it's tough to comprehend. As they're approaching the storm, you'll notice that Slit says "fang it," F-A-N-G, fang it, and later Charlize Theron says it as well. Do you guys know what that means?
No idea.
Just like punch it.
Yeah, so it's an Australian slang. Actually, we actually do say it here. Basically, yeah, punch it. Like, fucking put your foot down to the bottom of the fucking pedal and just smash it. And I love that little detail, dude. Like, that's just such a little Aussie tidbit that's in there that just makes me love like little bits of this movie, man.
See, and part of it can like I'm like, why fang it? I'm like, well, I guess like sink your teeth into it, like really sink your teeth into it. Like, oh, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. Like Fang it, like in certain odd little ways, some shit just like I have no idea if that's correct. Do not go home and tell anybody that. But like that's just the first thing that popped into my head.
Dude, like I didn't even like see it from that way. Like Fang it's just been, you know, ingrained in my fucking vocabulary for so long, so I couldn't even tell you. But before they head into the storm, you know, the war boy finds out that I love he just grabs Furiosa. He's like, "What have you done? What have you done?" And like basically
the fucking jig is up.
Yeah, they get into a scuffle, man, and I love Nux's car going backwards. I like just the shot of like Tom Hardy's like face as he like spins him. Oh god, it's awesome. But yeah, they head into the storm and talk about one of the most visually striking sequences in the movie. In a movie that's stuffed of with visually striking sequences. This is incredible, man. Like it's not only the visuals, it's the music working in tandem with the visuals that gets me. It's the way the horns come in as you know, Furiosa like turns sharp left and like blasts those war boys into the storm, and like, you know, those war boys are just blowing up. Oh, it's fantastic. What talk to me, Floyd. What do you think about this sequence? Is it a bit much? Because this was in the trailer and like a lot of people lost their minds over this sequence.
Absolutely. I love it. I think it's great. Every time I watch it, it reminds me of like, you guys ever hear these things where on other planets where, you know, you'll read something or something will be reported about other planets where they're like, you know, there's a storm on this planet that's been raging for 500 years and it has 300-mile-an-hour winds and it's raining diamonds. You know what I mean? Or something crazy like that. That's what this storm reminds me of.
It totally feels like an otherworldly, like a storm that would occur on Mars. It's fantastic. Like the color palette is beautiful. I love like Nux looking over to the right, like through his window, and he can see the war rig. Oh, it's great. Colin, what do you think?
I like it a lot because when I was playing the Mad Max video game, every once in a while you'll just be driving, just doing whatever. You know, one time I was in like the middle of a mission and it just like all of a sudden it pops up on your screen, warning, storm coming, take shelter. And you're like, what the fuck? Like the first time I saw it, I was like, what the hell are they talking about? And dude, like out of nowhere, it's like just normal and quiet. And then just like, dude, it comes dumping in, and it's not as bad as these. It's not like you get these like fire and electric tornadoes. It's not as visually cool as like all that. It's just like this huge sandstorm that comes through. It's blowing like fucking tires and doors and refrigerators and shit. So like if you're not in your car, it really fucking bangs you up. But you can go inside the storm and get like loot because it blows like a lot of shit around. So like you can get like good loot from it. But like when those storms come through, it is such a fun, like now I'll charge them head on and fucking hit like nitrous and fly into them and then just go driving around because it is such a crazy feeling. Like I've had people come up on me on that game while I'm driving, like you know, AI, just like bad guys, and be fighting them in the middle of that shit and see a guy get fucking taken out by like a chunk of concrete, and I just get in my car and drive off. I'm like, holy fuck, like it is intense, man. Like I'm not saying I've lived this shit. I'm just saying like I've come about as close as I feel like fucking getting to one of these stores, and it's crazy.
Nux ruptures the fuel lines. I am the man who grabs the sun, riding to Valhalla. This is basically him starting to commit to a suicide mission, right? And at this point, if you're Max, you're starting to shit bricks. You're like, holy shit, what are we getting into? I love Max just like absolutely smashing that window, and like you can sense the desperation. Like he's just like, holy fuck, like the way this is shot is so chaotic, but it makes sense. Like every character, you know where they are, you know what their motivations are. And man, Furiosa just like smashing into the back of that car, and everyone just goes flying. You know, it is a little bit CGI-y. It is like, you know, but I can live without that. I'm fine. But I love the way the music just peaks, and like, you know, the final shot of this entire massive action sequence is this flare that just goes out. It's great.
Yeah, no, I don't mind the CGI here. I mean, it kind of has to be, you know, like when you use it sparingly, I can deal with it, but it's the movies that, you know, what was the budget on this movie? Like 150 million or something like like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so like, you know, they were still able to do practical without really having to like compensate for all that stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. Like you did like 80 or 90% of this movie practically, and the digital stuff you used sparingly, and I appreciated that. And it was stuff that you pretty much you can't cause a real storm like that. So like it's like, okay, cool. That's still badass. So it's a cool sequence.
Yeah, I don't mind the CGI here. The only thing I will say is, and I know we have to kind of suspend disbelief a little bit or what have you, but in this sequence, Max is dead.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
He's gone. He's like, see ya. Like even just the way the CGI depicts him, like the way he lands and shit, I'm just like, you're gone, dude.
yeah.
Oh, and of course now there'll be some shitty fan theory like Max actually died right then and the rest of the movie is just a dream. I'm like, fuck you
Fuck
lazy
off.
fuck, dude. Like I'm not a huge like fan theorist on a lot of stuff. I mean, I kind of am, like Stranger Things and Mad Max and shit like that. I just find it interesting. I don't take a lot of it as like canon, but like I hate the ones that are like, oh, this person went into a coma and the whole thing's just a dream. I'm like, you are so fucking lazy. I hate that stuff, man. Like,
That's bullshit.
like there's some cool ones. Like you were talking about Max punching out like the fucking glass in the back, like he's frantic, almost like he's kind of feral. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh
like,
boy.
yeah, we'll get into that shit. There's some interesting
boy.
stuff. There's some interesting theories. There's a couple of them with this movie, but still, it's still better than, oh, and the whole time he was just dead, and the last 10 minutes, it was just the last 10 minutes of his mind working. Oh my god, I hate that shit.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Max wakes up in the sand. I love this struggle. Like basically, he tries to separate him from Nux because they're chained together. I love that moment. Like I love that this is all visual as well. Like there's no dialogue here. There's no visualize. Like it's all visualizing Max's thought process, right? Like he grabs the shotgun, checks the 2 shells are in there, goes to fire it against Nux's like wrist, and it misfires. It's great. And basically he looks back and he sees the war party approaching, and he realizes, holy fuck, I gotta get the fuck out of here. And he carries Nux to the war rig. And dude, I love this entire sequence. So without the fight, just this kind of like lead up to the fight is great, because it's like you're not expecting this. Like the last thing you expect if you're Max, when you turn around the corner, you're not going to expect like 5 beautiful women bathing in water, like this rare commodity. Like it's just such a weird thing. Like, could you imagine?
Yeah, when you were like, oh, this is my favorite sequence. It's like, oh, 5 scantily clad women in white in a wet t-shirt contest. Of course it is.
Yeah, let's talk about these women, by the way.
I like it. Just find it is really jarring, because not only are they not only all like very very pretty, but it's like, it's just the all white. A couple of them are like very pale, so it's like just this kind of, with everything that's going on around it, it's very just like, whoa, like it kind of takes your mind a minute to like adjust to it.
Right, totally. One of them, like the main one, Splendid and Harrod. I know I pronounced that wrong, but she's played by Rosie Huntington Whiteley, who's married to Jason Statham. She's the pregnant one. The other one, there's another one who's played by Zoe Kravitz. That's Lenny Kravitz's daughter. But yeah, like this group of women who are just basically conducting this exodus, I guess, right? Like to get to the green place. We find out we find out that later. But yeah, this is a great sequence. Basically, Max points the shotgun at them, still pretty far away, but not as far away as Road Warrior. Like with the shotgun, with the sawn off.
Oh my god, yeah.
He's still pretty far away. I don't know about that, Max. And basically, he just grunts. Like he's at this point, like there's no like words. It's just like one word, like water, and like he just shoves that like hose in his face. Basically, he gets one of the women to start like using the bolt cutters to cut the chain off. And what does she say here, Colin?
Sorry, which one?
Oh, the one that's cutting the bolt cutters. Like I love this. I love this moment. She's like, is that just the wind, or is that a furious vexation?
Right. Yeah, I knew it was vexation something, but I missed the first part of it. I was like, oh fuck! It like literally just went past that part. I was trying to rewind it. I was like, god damn it!
Like it's just such a weird line. Like it feels very like Shakespearean. Like to be in there. I always found it weird, but I always liked it. I don't know why.
All right, it feels very like soliloquy-ish.
Right. And as she's cutting the bolt cutters, man, Furiosa just rushes answers at Max. And what I love, man, like they don't bitch out on this fight. This fight is awesomely choreographed and brutal because Furiosa just pulls that trigger, dude. Like she just not even hesitatingly, she just pulls that trigger. What do you guys think of this fight, Floyd? Hit me.
As we mentioned in the Road Warrior, there was definitely an awkward kind of punch that was thrown and a weird kind of landing. It was definitely not very smooth or movie-like. And even in, the first Mad Max, there's a few physical confrontations that are kind of a little clunky, I guess is how I would describe them. So I would kind of wonder what George Miller did here. Did he bring in somebody else? Because this fight sequence is excellent. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of hard hits. You can kind of what you spoke about during Road Warrior as well, Colin. The sounds very well in this, and it matches up well and everything. Excellent fight sequence, and something that we had never seen. Aside from Thunderdome, of course, but just a hand-to-hand combat or a hand-to-hand bare knuckle brawl, I guess you might call it, in this that we haven't really seen in the Mad Max trilogy before, and definitely the best one.
Totally, dude. Like, and I don't want to go past Margaret Sixel's editing here. Like, there's one sequence, there's just one moment here that I love, dude. Like, it's when Max goes for the gun. When she goes for the gun, and basically, like, he turns around and he sees the girl, like, in his mind, and like it's Furiosa, and it's just like this awesome like cutting back and forth. Like, she ejects the magazine, and the magazine falls on the ground, and just the sound of like the magazine falling on the ground, and then like she maneuvers the gun to like because there's one round still in the chamber, obviously. So it's great, man. The sound effect as well, like you hear that ping, that ringing noise. It's fantastic. So well edited, dude. You see the chain, like the sound of the chain just waving about, but the sped up shit is still used here a little bit. It's not as much as before. Did you notice that, Colin?
Yeah, it's definitely used during this fight, and like I get it for like the more kind of like high octane, like crazy parts. Like I get it. I'm still not a huge fan of it, but it's okay. I don't hate it so much in this part because it's a really badass, like well choreographed. Like she gets up and runs for the gun. He tugs up his arm because it's still attached to Nux, and it trips her up with the cord, and then she starts hitting him with the hose, and then he rolls on top of her, and there's Nux sitting there with the clip, and he clips it in and blah blah blah, like fires him by her head. I'm like, dude. That's cool. I like that. That's fucking badass.
I love the way this ends, man. Like he cocks the gun, and like just the way like Nux holds the mag so he can load it. Oh, it's fantastic. But they all see the war parting approaching. Nux cuts their chain, and basically so Max shoots Angharad here, and I love this shot of her like leg just kind of like bleeding. It's awesome. And he just takes off, right? But he doesn't get very far. Basically there's a kill switch, and I love that like Furiosa knows this. You see it in her face, like she's not too worried, right? Like she knows exactly what's going on.
Right, exactly. Because that's hard to catch on the first thing. I'm like, wow, like they're just gonna try and run and catch up to this war rig. Like, damn, that's ballsy. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, she's got an ace in the hole.
Right, totally. Like she's thought this thing through. She catches up. You're sitting on 2,000 pounds of nitro boosted war machine, she says, which is wild. This thing, man, I totally think that this thing could end the world. This thing is fucking massive. It is so scary. Oh man. But basically she kind of strong arms Max, I guess. And I love Max, still being the strong silent type, saying you can get in, but those bitches stay out there. Basically, right?
I don't want to skip over to the chastity belts.
Yeah.
Obviously, kind of just that whole sequence of them kind of washing off and cutting the chastity belts off and getting their shackles off and everything. Really, we don't need to see what they went through to certainly imagine what kind of life they're living back there at the Citadel.
Right. And you can like these wives are driven. They are so driven to get to the green place. And, by showing us how driven they are, like it kind of also says how terribly they were treated back of the Citadel as well. It's great.
Certainly.
But I love Furiosa, like I like kind of like talking with Max, parlaying with Max. She's like, you know, how grateful do you think he's going to be when you injured one of his wives? And the thing that makes Max come around is, you know, I can get that mask off for you.
Yeah.
And the music, the violins, great, awesome. But yeah, they strike up. This is what I love about this movie. This kind of like this friendship that's not really based on trust until really the end. You know, when Max, you know, comes around and donates his blood to Furiosa. But I love this like this friendship that kind of has to happen because they need to survive. It's kind of like this thing of like we're survivors in the wasteland alone, but we can kind of do it better together. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, I think it.
Yeah, there's a.
Oh, go ahead, Floyd.
I'm sorry, Colin. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, it's kind of interesting when you look at Furiosa and Max, because they're almost in a way like they're like opposite kind of pieces of each other. Like, whereas he's got this bum leg, she's got this bum arm. I love it. Like, there's a scene like later when she's trying to shoot the rifle, and like whereas Max is amazing in like close quarters combat and shit. I mean, dude's been fucking firing a double barrel shotgun for like 20 years now. So like he's obviously awesome at like close range stuff. But when it came something far away, think about it. That's the first time I've ever seen anything in a Mad Max movie where he's shooting like a rifle, like something from like far away. And Furiosa has to be the one to like take the shot. So it's like, oh, that's actually kind of cool because we've never really seen him do that before. That's probably something that's not usually in his wheelhouse. It's cool that they were able to like live like copacetically, like off each other in that way. I think they're very much so each other's yin to each other's yang kind of thing.
It's great. They work really well together. I love it. Basically, Max disarms the entire cab at gunpoint. There are a lot of guns in here, including a flare gun, which gets into use later. And basically, I love Max kind of like filing his mask as well. Like he's just like working away at it. And he tells Furiosa to stay out of the canyon, but she says, "Behind you." And who is it? It's the fucking Gastown boys, led by the people leader. This guy is scary. Basically, he's played by this actor named John Howard. And no, to you Australian listeners, he's not our former Prime Minister. John Howard is an actual actor as well. He's been in shows like All Saints and things like that. Not shows that I'd expect you guys to know, but still. And he is disgusting. Like he is.
I was going to say, was your former Prime Minister an obese cannibal? Like,
no, but we've got some that have come pretty close. So yeah.
Jesus.
But I love that he's kind of like this glorified accountant. Like he's basically an accountant in this movie, right? Like he has to, make sure that everything's accounted for, like, all the money, all the war boys. But yeah, so basically the pod at the back starts dragging along. Max has to go up and disable, like, re-enable the wheels. I love this shot of like, the three parties in the back. So now you've got the Bullet Town boys as well. Oh, it's great. It's a beautiful shot, man. And then Max finally is able to file down his mask and we get the show on the road. But
there's a nice little homage here to the Road Warrior. There's two of the wives are looking back at parties, and one has binoculars and one has the one eyepiece.
Oh, nice.
Good pull, Floyd. This is why we get him on the show. I love these little details. But Nux gets thrown out. Like I do love this like little back and forth between Nux and the wives. Basically, like Nux is like, we're not to blame, and the main wife is like, then who ruined the world, basically, right? It's great. And before he gets thrown out, he manages to grab like a piece of their garments, and he starts running towards the war parties. And dude, before like we get into this amazing sequence, we find out from Furiosa that basically they're bonding a little bit. Furiosa and Max are like, Furiosa tells him about the sequence to restart the truck, and she tells him that he may need to drive the rig, and tells the women to hide. And basically this is approaching the Rock Rider sequence, right? So before we kick off this scene, guys, how about we take a quick break and we'll be right back with one of my favorite sequences in the entire movie.
Sounds good.
Let's do it.
Fucking awesome, guys. We'll be right back with more Mad Max Fury Road. Do not go anywhere. guys. I just wanted to take some time to talk to you about Audible. Have you heard about Audible? It's some book thing that every other podcast is talking about. Basically, if you sign up, you can pick up our book titled Midnight Double Feature Doesn't Do Advertising by Colin Duncan, Zohaib Ali, Danny Harley, and Matt Vella. I'm just kidding. We don't have advertising, but I do want to plug our podcast for a sec. Just while we're taking a quick break here, we've got a few things that we just wanted to put out there for any newcomers, or if you're not a part of our growing community, maybe this could benefit you too. Firstly, I just want to let the newbies know about our episodes and the way Midnight Double Feature is currently structured. As you know, right now you're listening to one of our feature presentations. When we started the podcast, we basically built our show around feature presentations. These are movies that we choose to cover and basically go through everything in the movie that's worth talking about sequentially. These episodes are generally longer, and we're definitely looking at options to spice up our feature presentations by getting guests on. We also have the upcoming attractions episodes. Typically, these come out during the week and are much shorter than our feature presentations. These are hosted by Matt Vella and basically consist of a conversation between Matt and I about any movie news that's worth talking about, quick reviews of movies that are out there, and other hijinks. Finally, we have our special features. These are usually one-off special episodes that are mostly experimental and don't really have any specific definition. They could be a sit-down with a cast or crew member, a conversation between the hosts, or just a straight-up different thing that might not even relate to film. Before I let you get back to the episode, I just wanted to thank our listeners and supporters. We definitely couldn't have done any of this without your guys' constant support. If, for some reason, you're not part of our growing community, head to our socials. We've got 2 pages on Facebook, Midnight Double Feature, which is our main page and has our formal announcements, and we also have the After Party, which is where we post memes, news, and teasers of what's to come on Midnight Double Feature. We're also on Instagram, which is at Midnight Double Feature, and we're on Twitter, which is at MDFPod. Thanks again for listening, guys. Back to the show. Hey guys, we are back, freshly squeezed, ready to cover some more Mad Max Fury Road. Dude, I have been having a blast talking about this movie, but man, I'm so excited to talk about, hands down, my favorite sequence in the entire movie. This is of course the Rock Riders sequence with these bikes. Holy shit! Before we get down there though, we get Furiosa asking Max for his name, and she's just like, "All right, I'm just gonna call you Fool," and when you hear Fool, you drive.
I love that. You were kind of talking about them bonding. I think it's so important, really, for their relationship, where she just comes out and says, "I might need you here." Yeah,
right. Like she needs to rely on him. But what would she have done if he hadn't come along, though?
Good question.
Yeah. She wasn't. But she wasn't. I guess she wasn't like. She wasn't intending on the Rock Riders to turn on her because there was only supposed to be one war party.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's supposed to just be smooth sailing from here, right?
Right, exactly. And man, they park the car. The car.
That's modest.
That's a fucked up car. They park the war rig. They get out, and the war chief, the Rock Rider chief, has said, "There's only supposed to be, I count 3 war parties." Love this dude, man.
Dude, calling this war rig a car, I mean, it it makes Bruce Wayne's Batmobile in the Nolan trilogy look like a car. Like it's just so modest by comparison.
This thing is crazy, dude. But I love Furiosa putting on the grease onto her forehead, like, just kind of like battle paint, I guess. Is that what we're supposed to take away from that?
Yeah, just like some kind of like greased up war paint, basically.
Yeah. The Rock Rider's pretty pissed, man. She says she's gonna unhitch the pod, and he's supposed to drop the rocks, and man, this is tension. I love the tension here. Basically, you get the wife's baby, the baby, like, she starts having some, I guess, contusions. He says, a few vehicles in pursuit, I count 3 war parties, and she says, "Yeah, well, I got unlucky." And man, things just kick off. She dives, and they take off. He blows they're on at their end of the deal. He blows the fucking rock cliff, and Immortan Joe and his boys are like trapped on the other side. And dude, I'm not even kidding, we get the start of one of my favorite scores of all time. So this track is called Brothers in Arms from Junkie XL, and have a listen to this. This is fantastic. With the way the violins work with the brass and the drums, it's fantastic. it.
Nice.
I love it so much. It honestly is like just the way it's like, you know, it's used with the bikes jumping over the dunes, and man, them absolutely destroying this war rig, like throwing those explosives. I love this action sequence, man. It might be one of my favorite action sequences of all time. Floyd, like you had the end of the Road Warrior as your favorite action sequence of all time. This is one where I shit you not, all of the 5 times I watched this in the cinema, this entire sequence, man, just had goosebumps. Like I had goosebumps. And watching it again for the podcast, watching every time I watch this sequence, dude, I turn it all the way up and my eyes are glued to the screen. What did you guys think of this sequence? Floyd, you hit me first.
Amazing, especially when you incorporate the motorcycles and no pavement. you know what I mean. I mean, it's all sand and rock and jumping and aerobatic. Is that the right word?
Acrobatic.
Acrobatic. Thank you. The explosions. It's all. There's so much being choreographed, so much going on. It really is an amazing action sequence
for sure. By the way, they sourced some of Australia's best freestylers, like motocrossers, for this sequence. They did a lot of practicing for this sequence, man. Like there is a lot of behind the scenes footage about these guys, and basically, yeah, they filmed this sequence for so long, and this was a tough one for them. But one of my favorite moments of this chase is Furiosa lowering that front bumper and just the sand like blowing away the fire.
Oh hell yeah, dude! It is.
Oh my god!
It's so like, dude, what the fuck are you gonna do? And just immediately, it's like, dude, I don't need a fire extinguisher. Like, I don't need water. Like, I just need something to drown the oxygen. I'm like, God, that's fucking genius, man.
Right, and the Hemi kind of closing its air vents, and it's just kind of like when it opens again, it's like the war rig is taking a breath. It's fantastic. I love this sequence, man. I'm so wrapped up in it. I can't talk. Someone else talk, please. I'm watching it right now. Colin, you talk to me about this sequence, dude. What, like with the music and everything, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's okay. No, I'm just kidding.
You can fuck off.
It's
all right. I'm disconnecting this call.
It's a pretty good sequence. I like it. The only parts that I nitpick at all that I don't really love are when Furiosa pops out with the rifle and she's shooting them like as they're coming off. Like it does look a little like green screen CGI, but I get it. Like you like they use it sparingly, so I'm not like real down on it. I'm not like, oh my god, that just sucks. And I like the fact that I was like seeing these bigger machines versus like the smaller motorcycles, because like it's kind of lacking. Like the rig can only go so fast versus these bikes. I mean, they could just ride on like so much farther ahead, but what they lack in but what they're lacking is just the size to really do any like big impact. So unless you've got some kind of like crazy weapon, you're not really going to do a whole lot of damage to this thing. So it's kind of like all the planes swarming around King Kong at the end of it. He's just like swatting them all down. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I love seeing like the smaller stuff versus the bigger scale things.
See, I had that thought, but I like that, these bikes are so agile and they're so small. They're able to kind of like maneuver their way around the rig. Basically, like Max and Furiosa have to work together, right? Like I love Max, loading the rifle for her so she can pop up through the sunroof. And it's just a great standout sequence for me, man. I love the bike exploding beneath the rig, so the pod kind of like becomes detached and it just explodes. You see the Bigfoot, this vehicle, this monster truck is called the Bigfoot. This is Rictus Erectus's vehicle. And it just like blasts through the fucking explosion. It's awesome, dude. They drive up, he's using his flamethrower, and he's told not to use his flamethrower because of the wives, and basically no, go Floyd.
Being from Australia, are you aware of the truck named Bigfoot?
No. What?
Do you know what I'm talking about, Colin?
Oh yeah. There's like the big monster truck rallies and shit.
Yeah, there's like monster trucks, where they were like run over cars and do all these things. Probably, well, I don't even think it's debatable. The most famous one of those of all time was a truck called Bigfoot. It looks, about the same size as that one. So that's probably where that name comes from.
Damn, son. Well, I'm going to renounce my patriotism and my nationality, and I'm going to become a nomad. We get Nux basically trying to tell Immortan Joe that I'm going to pike her in the spine. I'm going to bring him back, and Nux has this whole beautiful sequence basically trying to earn Immortan Joe's trust. But what happens, Colin?
Yeah, he sprays him in the mouth. He's like, I will send you to Valhalla myself, and gives him the revolver, sweet ass revolver. Gets like 2 steps into this thing and just like, what? And fucking drops and fucks everything up.
Right, the music just swells up. You start getting the violins. You're like, holy shit, this guy's gonna do it.
Mediocre.
And yeah, he fucks up. Yeah, but man, like this shot of like the Bigfoot just like climbing that I guess ramp, but it's more of a gorge, and it's just that beautiful jump it does. That sweet jump. Holy shit, man!
Awesome.
Again, all practical. That was done for real. It's just this entire sequence is fantastic. But yeah, you get this sequence of her name's Angharad. She's the pregnant one. She kind of like steps out, and what happens basically? So Rictus harpoons the steering wheel, and he gets caught against Max. And I love that they have to use this massive kind of like wrench to like turn the vehicle. It's cool. And but I do wish they didn't do this fake out with Angharad. Like it's kind of like this sequence what you said, Colin, with the Road Warrior, just with the boomerang. Just why do we have to see this fake out and then get her killed like 5 seconds later? It's weird.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Not a fan of that. But I do like, Max's little thumbs up that it gives her. He's just like, yeah, good on ya. But dude, like when Immortan Joe pulls that fucking monster truck to the left and it just goes flying, holy shit. Nicholas Hoult talks about, he's like, it's so hard to keep acting in a sequence like that. Like he's like, because the shot is on me, like watching it. And he's like, when I saw that monster truck just flip like that, it was just insane. Crazy, dude. But Max is adamant that she went under the wheels. And Furiosa says that we got to keep moving. And the wives aren't happy with that, are they? Whatever happens, we're going to the green place. So Rictus isn't really the smartest person on the planet, right?
Yeah, no.
Let me fire these 50 caliber machine gun bullets into the air. Yeah.
Let me wear my weird, like, Swiss cheese looking chin strap or whatever that is he's wearing. I don't even know what that thing is.
Let me use what was left over from Humongus's wardrobe. Yeah, totally, dude. But basically the war rig starts to overheat, and we get one of the wives, Cheeto, running back to the war party saying that he'll forgive us. I know he will. Like, I love this kind of like desperation. It's great. What do you think about like the wives kind of like having this like little split, Colin? And I love Furiosa like raising up that sniper and just sniping those two fucking riders.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense somewhere in the group of these people that someone who's never had to experience like living out like in the, because she's like, later on one of them's like, oh, it hurts. She's like, everything hurts out here. Like they're probably not used to that. And I think it's interesting to see somebody who's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go back. They'll forgive us, blah, blah, blah. I think you always kind of see people like that in movies that try to make like some kind of bargaining position with those people. It's like, no, you've already fucked up. Like it doesn't matter. Like do I think that Immortan Joe would just be like, oh no, everything's cool, you're cool? Like maybe like because you're like one of his like breeding wives. But I think it's realistic that one of these people would want to like back out of it at the last minute, Right,
totally. I love this. Like we get like a little kind of like sequence of Nux and one of the wives like sort of bonding. And this is the Larry and Barry sequence. What do you guys think of like giving Nux a little bit of humanity? This war boy who kind of defects more or less.
Oh, you go ahead, Floyd.
I think it's not only giving humanity to Nux, it's also reminding us that all those guys are human. They're all real people. You know what I mean? That now they've been brainwashed, and they have these been raised to have these thoughts about what's good and what's bad and what's going to send them to Valhalla, which is their heaven or what have you. But he can't be the only one. So it kind of gives us an idea of the oppression that these people are kept under. And the brainwashing, of course, that they've endured. And I think this is also the first time we really start to get a good look at Nux and his health. I mean, we see the lump on his shoulder and his lips are so, cracked. He has all these scarring. So, it isn't necessarily that these people are bad people. They're just doing, what they might think is the right thing to do and what they've been raised to think.
Right, totally. And I love kind of how fucked up it is that Nux has drawn smiley faces on the tumors. It's fucking weird. It's like embracing your death or something like that, being really, I guess, really positive about it, weirdly. But yeah. Then we get our first nighttime sequence. And dude, I was talking about this in the Road Warrior podcast. I love the way night is filmed in this film, I guess. Filmed in this film. It is this beautiful shade of blue. And it's just outstanding, man. Especially when you see the war parties in their headlights, the way everything's sort of illuminated. It's like a painting. But yeah, we get this scene of basically they're bogged in the mud and Max sets up these mines. Where did they get these mines from? I'm hoping these were in the war rig.
Oh yeah.
Well, the war rig seems pretty stocked up and with the artillery.
Yeah. Because I was like, there's no way that Max has these, right? There's no fucking way. He had nothing. But yeah, again, you get this really wide shot of the rig just making its way across the wasteland. Love the shot of the two Morton Joe guys getting blown up with the mines. Oh, it's awesome. But yeah, basically this is where we find out. I guess I had a little baby brother. He was perfect in every way. What did you guys think about this? This was pretty dark, actually.
Yeah, no. Well, for one thing, I really doubt that kid is perfect in every way. I seriously doubt that.
Yeah, not in these conditions.
No, God, no. But I mean, it definitely kind of raises the stakes. Now Morton Joe is really pissed because she's not the only one that's pregnant, right? There's another one that's pregnant,
right? It's the blonde one, yeah.
Right, exactly. So now there's still not only does he want the the breeding wives back, but at the same time, one is pregnant, so there's still some kind of motivation for him to go out there and keep the pursuit up.
Right, totally. You got anything on that, Floyd?
No, I mean that's my thoughts exactly. I mean, if it's it's that's what I would think, what I think as well. I mean, there's a reason now for them to exact revenge beyond we actually have blood that's been let at this point. So and when you think about that as far as a wife, but then a child, that it takes it to another level.
Right, totally. So basically the war parties are all bogged down except for the bullet farmer. So the bullet farmer decides to go ahead, and now it kind of becomes this race to get the war rig out before the bullet farmer approaches. This guy's crazy, man. This bullet farmer guy, he's wild.
I love him.
I love him too.
Yeah.
What do you think about the way he approaches the rig with the operatic music? Well, we get the operatic music after he gets his fucking eyes blown out. So that's a thing, right?
I mean, literally pulling the bullet out of his mouth too.
Yeah,
and putting it in his gun or whatever. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
I
love.
Totally.
He's like, hold a flare up in front of my face. You're like, I am. He's like, closer. He's like, that's as close as it can get.
Right, and one of my little most favorite sequences in this thing is really a tiny thing, but I love Max just trying to snipe at these guys, and Furiosa just grabs it on that last bullet, and she's like, don't breathe, and she fucking nails it. Oh, great. Love these two working together, dude. And I love that this is the poster as well. You got Furiosa with that sniper and Max with that shotgun. It's great. But yeah, dude, we didn't even talk about the people eaters. Oh, sorry, the bullet farmer's car. This tank / muscle car. Holy shit, wild.
And it's also set up to where the cog on the front of the I guess tank part of it actually looks like the wheel is turning on the car. You know what I mean? There's a chrome I don't know, hubcap or whatever that makes it looks like the wheels are turning as the tank is moving.
Yeah, that's cool. I see it now.
Yeah.
That, dude, the fucking attention to detail.
Yeah.
But yeah, bullet farmer. I am the scales of justice. I am the conductor of the choir of death. Oh, this guy's crazy, man. He just starts like whipping shots. Zing, brother heckler. He's a weirdo. He's a fucking strange fella. They managed to get the war rig out of the bog using that tree, just barely though. Holy shit. And Max goes and deals with the bullet farmer by himself. What do you think about this?
Well, I was going to say, I definitely want to talk about this because it's like as I'm watching and I'm like, there's something kind of symbolic going on. Like, what am I what should I take away from this? Like, you know, because I think there's my interpretation of it, and I'm not saying that's exactly what it is, but it's kind of like there's this tree. It's this old dead tree out in the middle of nowhere, and it's got these, you know, roots deep down in the ground. So it's kind of interesting. Like, part of me feels like the tree is like, not to get too heady, is like almost like an analogy for what's going on with Max. It's like you have these old, like, dead problems that you just need to let go that have just like festered like deep down, and it's not so I think the fact that the tree gets pulled down while Furiosa and everybody else is coming closer to him is like these people are moving forward, and like they're coming towards you while your thing is kind of like toppling over. So I think it's like a bit of like showing the fact that you have to throw away all of the shit that's on your plate right now to get anywhere, to get ahead, to get some progress, because like you have a chance to do something great, you know, but you have to kind of like throw all of that shit that's been going on to the wind and just focus on this for now. I didn't want to read into it like too much, but I was like, there's definitely something. There's always something really symbolic to me about the tree. You know, the rings inside with the time and the age and the roots that go down. And I like the fact that it's those things that just kind of like also like help him and like pull it forward. Like all of his experiences have helped him get to this point, you know, but he needs to use those to like push himself forward, not just like sit there and waste like this tree in the middle of the wasteland, just nothing going on, just dead.
Dude, that's pretty cool. I like it when the car goes boom. No, but seriously, that actually that never occurred to me, but honestly it fucking makes sense, and it wouldn't surprise me if Miller threw that in, like if that was intentional. Like, that's awesome, dude. Love that.
I absolutely love the interaction when, you know, Max is going back to take care of the bullet farmer or whoever else is coming, and she's like, well, what if you're not back in time for us to go? And he's almost confused. It's because of his lack of emotion and a lack of you know, making decisions based on emotion or human interaction. He says, you just keep going. You know, it's right. Like he's not even, you know, there's not even a thought in his mind about them waiting on him, or because that's exactly what he would do. Right,
exactly. It's kind of like he's been out in this wasteland by himself, all alone, and it's just kind of like he can't interact with humans anymore. Like, or he doesn't know how to. He's incapable. Great. But yeah, it turns out it's not his blood. Pretty badass. And right. He washes it away with mother's milk. Ugh. Yikes.
Is that a little warm in that tank?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, they've been carrying that milk around with them this entire time. Like, it looks pretty hot.
I think it's mother's cottage cheese at this point.
Awesome, dude. Love this shot as they drive past they don't know it yet, but the green place, right?
Oh, dude, this is fucking creepy, man. Like, as I'm watching it, I was like,
yeah.
Are those like actual people on stilts, I assume, or are these type of like giant like granddaddy long leg like praying mantis creatures? Like what the fuck are these things? These are just people with like long legs, right? I assume, or like some kind of like stilts or something.
It's something. I honestly think it's like just people like scavengers out on stilts or something like that. Because it's like, if this was the green place, then there might be some stuff to scavenge here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, you know what I mean? So it makes that, like, you know, makes sense that people are out on stilts, like, still looking for shit. But it's creepy, man. I like that we don't get any explanation as to what these things are. Floyd, what do you think about this sequence?
I have two thoughts about this area. First of all, it reminds me of what is that? Atreyu. It reminds me of where Atreyu's horse died.
Oh, yeah.
For right, sure. Yeah, the bog. Yeah.
And the other thing is this like the scene of this and those creepy creatures. I'm just waiting for those like crazy bat creatures from the Beastmaster to show up. I feel like there's like these weird, like you're saying, it almost looks like those guys are creatures, but I agree. I think it's just people on stilts because of they're out there in that water and that mud or whatever. But I totally agree. You also have these like the ravens or whatever sitting in these dead trees. Mm-hmm. It's just a very creepy atmosphere atmospheric area there.
Totally, man. But it sticks in your mind as well because, like, it's not just another environment that they're driving past. Like, later when they find out that this is the green place, you're like, holy shit, it was that thing? It was that area? Fuck.
Which kind of makes sense, though, because it's wet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's water.
Obviously, it's been poisoned at some point, but with the wet and the water and the trees at some point, you know, you'd think it probably was green.
Right, totally. We cut back to Furiosa and Max bonding in the war rig. Furiosa is telling Max that she was stolen as a child, and that now she drives a war rig, basically. I love, does she have grey hairs? Is she, like, older? Is she supposed to be older?
Yeah, she's kind of got that, like, Carol from first season of Walking Dead, kind of, like, second season.
Oh, don't you dare. Don't you dare compare it to Carol.
Like that salt and peppery kind of, like hair, like, kind of look going on. By the way, you can go ahead and shave Charlize Theron's head and take one of her arms off. She's still hot. I don't care. Like,
yeah, right.
Don't get me wrong. Like, first and foremost, like, I like her because she is a badass character. Like, she is right. Furiosa's like right up there with like Sarah Connor and Ripley now. Like, she is a fucking iconic, like, sci-fi female badass character.
Absolutely.
But she's also still super fucking uber hot. Which actually, the funny part was, when Millie Bobby Brown was shaving her head for Stranger Things, they were like, look, Charlize Theron just did it. And she was like, okay, cool. Like, her and Natalie Portman, you know, like, that was a big push for Millie Bobby Brown. I was like, that's pretty fucking cool.
Hell yeah, dude. I mean, like, Furiosa, like, to create a heroine today that's as iconic as Sarah Connor or Ripley, it's no small feat, right? I just think Miller and Theron just knocked it out of the park. But they rock up to this tower, basically, that has all these, like, reflecting mirrors on them, and they're greeted by a naked woman. Do you know who this actress is? Anyone?
No.
So this is an Australian supermodel named Megan Gale, and so you might, I'm not sure if you know this, but George Miller was supposed to direct a version of Justice League back in the day.
Yeah.
And the person that he chose to play Wonder Woman was Megan Gale.
I can see it.
And you can see it, right? Like, when she comes down and she hugs him, and she's like a badass warrior woman in this. Like, I can see her as a Wonder Woman. So that's a fun little tidbit. I remember, like, on my way to school listening to it on the radio, actually. You know, I remember, I think it was when Happy Feet came out, because George Miller directed that, and he was giving an interview, and, like, they were talking about Justice League and things like that, and he's like, yeah, I'd like Megan Gale to be Wonder Woman. And obviously that didn't go the way it planned, but yeah, I'd love to see a George Miller Justice League, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, that got pretty far along in development.
It totally did. But yeah, talk to me about this sequence, Floyd, like, with this group of, I guess, badass grandmothers.
Definitely a homecoming of sorts and a welcoming for Furiosa. I mean, once she announces that she's from, I don't know what it is, Van Volda or something like that, or, you know, it's like, you know, she pretty much lets them know that she's from there and she knows their tribe and she knows the history and that type of thing. And heartbreaking, though, for her, and definitely one of the more popular kind of clip that you saw in the trailers, when she hits her knees and realizes that, like, it's just everything we've worked for in this whole journey that we've come here, and it's gone. It's not here anymore.
Right. Just that absolutely crushing moment of your spirit being just fucking broken, dude. It's such a beautiful sequence as well. Like, when she walks out into the desert, she takes everything off and she just, like, sinks to her knees and she just shouts to the air when no one's listening. I also really like these old ladies. Like, they're awesome. They're great actresses, but I also love this whole, like, rugged, we've survived this long kind of, like, feel to them. Like, this one has all her teeth. They're great. They're awesome.
And of course, they're all apprehensive about a male.
Right. They ask who the two males are, but you know, they obviously trust Furiosa. They're just like, she's like, you know, they help me get here. But yeah, we get this night sequence. Basically, I love the, like, when they see the satellite and they're like, oh, oh, I wish I had a show. Great. Everyone in the old world had a show. But they look at the plains of silence, basically the salts. So are we to believe that the oceans have kind of dried up and left these salts? Is that what's happening here?
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. It's like nothing but 160 miles of like salt land. It's like that's kind of unnatural, I guess. Like, I mean, it kind of makes sense, I think, because like when actually to bring it up again, whenever you're playing Mad Max the game, there's only so far you can go out there, and it's called like the Big Nothing. But right before it, it's like the salts, where it's like this like kind of like that real like broken up kind of like super dry like land. It's not even, it just cracks like everywhere running through it, like that kind of like chipped like kind of look. So I think so. I mean that would make sense. It explains why water is such a huge priority as well. Something's happened and come along, and either rainfall's not happening as much more, or what have you. But yeah, I mean I agree with that.
Right,
and
totally.
to that point also in Road Warrior, when they left the compound, they were supposed to meet at Powdered River, and it's generally thought that Powdered River was a dried up river.
Oh, okay.
That's cool. I dig that. But this is definitely one of our quieter scenes, right? I love this scene with one of this wife. Her name is the Dag. And she's basically talks to one of the old ladies whose unofficial name is the Keeper of the Seeds. Stay right where you are, little Joe. Kind of it's like his novelty out here. So obviously she's pregnant, and I love this little exchange between them. You kill people with that, do you? And I love this old lady. Killed everyone I've ever met out here. Headshots, all of them. Snap, right in the medulla. Which is awesome. And basically, I do love the Dag's kind of like reaction here. She's like, I thought some of you girls were above all that. So I love this kind of like sort of this idea that the wasteland changes everyone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even if you have like preconceived notions of like old ladies being above violence or above like, protecting themselves, that's not the case. Keeper of the Seeds shows her the seeds. These are from home, heirlooms, the real thing. I plant one every chance I get. And so far, nothing's taken. The earth's too sour. It's great. I do love this moment. This is one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. Not only because this is one of the rare scenes that we've slowed down, but because I do like that we get more information about the wasteland. I love that. And it's not too much info. It's not, it's not like aliens took over the earth or some shit like that. It's like, I can't plant anything physically here because nothing's growing. It's great.
Right. It's simple.
Right. Exactly. It's not over explaining. But you get Max and Furiosa talking 160 days ride across the plains. And basically what happens, Colin? They just they split, right?
Yeah, only for a moment, really. And basically they split. They're just going to go, running across the plains of silence. Max catches up with them, and he's like, hey, I got a better plan, which is basically just go right back the way that we came, because I think the pass is cleared by now, so they can get through there. The Citadel is undefended, and all they have to do is just drop off, like drop something in there to block the way, really, and bada bing, bada boom, you're out of there.
Bada bing, bada boom. I love the Keeper of the Seeds. Boom.
Yeah, and I love Max's, like, that's the only time, like, that
he smiles.
Yeah, it's the only time, dude. In like the second, like, Road Warrior, hell no, like there's nothing about that he laughs at or smiles. But I love that, like, just that one, because she's actually my favorite out of all of these. Like, she's
totally,
she's good comic relief. She's a badass. She's got some interesting like character things going on that I really like about her. So when she did that, I thought that was just really in character. And you can tell Max is kind of like, I like you old broad. You're crazy as shit.
Definitely, man. And I think Tom Hardy plays this so well, this sequence. I like just little touches like that. I do think he is a bit understated in this role. But tomato, right?
Well, I was going to say that the thing that does drive me crazy though is, okay, so we understand that Max has these ghosts that are haunting him. Furiosa she's seeking redemption. Not only has she, been like driving this war rig, probably against her will. I mean, she said she was taken. So she has to deal with that. And at the same time, she's dragged all these people out here and has nothing to show for it. But I just don't like how, I mean, just blatantly, she's like, he's like, oh, she's like, yeah. And what's waiting back there? He's like, I figured your redemption, we could both get redemption. I was like, really? You just come out and say it? Like, it's just kind of like, I don't know. There's something about that I just didn't dig. I just thought it was a little like, I don't know, it's a little too easy. I would have just liked a little bit better dialogue there. Because I get it. Like, I think we all get it by now that it's kind of like a redemption story. So like, I don't want characters just like blurt out exactly what it is, like there's
right. You don't want it to be too obvious.
Right. Exactly. And they just kind of just like, bleh, just like put it all out right there. I was like, oh, okay. So we're just going to say it. All right. Got it. It reminds me of.
What'd you think, Floyd? Was it too much for you? What, Floyd?
What's that? I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to Colin. What was the question?
Oh no, I was going to say, was it too much for you?
It never jumped out at me. I totally understand what Colin's saying, and I agree with what you're saying, Colin. But it wasn't something that really jumped out at me. But again, I concur.
Excellent.
Shut up. Dude, this is weird. Why is Immortan Joe humming to himself? I never liked this. This was never like, he's just kind of like standing there like holding this spear and he's like it's like waiting for something to happen.
Right, he sounds like a bored kid at a lemonade stand.
Totally, dude. I also love like the Duff Warrior, like he's just like leaning up against like the strings that are holding him up, and like his legs are up on the guitar. And then of course we get our final sequence. Here we go, girls. The rig blasts past them, and Joe gets his boys going, right? The first thing we get is the new interceptor, and basically this is Max and Slit just going at it, right? I love the spitting the fuel into the engine. Oh, it's great. What did you guys think about this?
Awesome. I like this sequence better than the sequence in the canyon before. Nux has come full circle here. He's obviously on our side now, and he knows, they worship V8s, right? I mean, he knows how to get a motor to run and how to get it to run at its peak performance. So definitely something that they could use along this time, and he certainly helps them out.
Yeah, except Nux accidentally swallows some fuel. Jesus.
I'm guessing not the first time.
No, yeah. I doubt it. Max gets his ass out there and he starts supercharging the rig. I love, dude, when Max puts blows the fuel into the thing. I love the shot of like the exhaust, like the flames coming out of the exhaust on the side of the rig. Holy shit. This entire sequence is just chaos, man, and it escalates and it escalates and it just gets better and better. But of course, one of the old ladies manages to hit one of the drivers of the interceptor, and it goes flying off. And Jesus Christ, man, this entire sequence is just, I don't even know how we're going to cover this, really. This is just so fucking so crazy, dude.
And to that point, I mean, as we've talked about, I mean, this is a visual, obviously a visual medium, but also the movie is very visual. There's not a lot of dialogue. There's not a lot of things that are going on that are verbal that we can, discuss the merits of, the plot or not necessarily the plot, but the dialogue. So, I mean, it is hard to describe it. I mean, it's just a fantastic chase scene and it's a fantastic action.
Right. Pretty much like all of the action that you're seeing on screen is fantastic. And guys, we will see you next week. This has been Midnight Double Feature. But you know what I do love, dude? I love the war boys firing the spears into the back of the tanker and them trying to like slow it down by like putting the grates on the back of their cars.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me like this of like old chariots, like an old chariot chase.
Yeah, I can see that.
Fucking badass, dude. But yeah, basically they're hauling them back, and this is where we get the polecats. Holy shit, the polecats. So George Miller said that he what they wanted to do was film them, because the challenge was filming this as like they were driving, and he was like, surely there's no way we'd be able to get these polecats driving at the same time and like doing these acrobatic stunts. So what they were going to do is like film the polecats separately and then composition them into the war rig sequence, but that just didn't work. It felt like, you know, things were too engineered, and eventually that guy that we were talking about earlier, Floyd, Guy Norris, he had a friend in Vegas who worked with the Cirque du Soleil, and they eventually were able to find a way to do it, man. Like, they started off obviously stationary. The big thing for them was the counterweights, the guys at the bottom who were like handling the guys at the top. They had to find, you know, sometimes 60 foot high like poles that could like actually sustain 100 kilo person, but also bend without snapping. That was a big thing. This whole polecat sequence, dude, I absolutely adore. Talk to me. Someone talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that they were able to get performers to actually make these practical stunts and practical effects is just, well, literally Oscar worthy, right?
Literally Oscar worthy. Yeah.
I mean, it's not. It really doesn't get any better than when it comes to being able to perform these stunts and the action and the originality. You know, I mean, who would have thought to do that and thought that you'd be able to physically pull it off? And they did, and the result is just, you know, magic movie making.
Absolutely, dude. Magic movie making. I could watch this sequence all day. Max gets into a fist fight with a wrench at the top. I love this guy just like using the polecat to throw a grenade through the sunroof. And these guys are scary, dude. Like, their masks and shit. Holy shit. Like, again, costume design, Oscar winner. Like, that's enough to be said, man. But dude,
details.
Yeah.
It's all in the details. It's crazy.
Yeah. Colin, your gal cops a fucking chainsaw.
Oh, you talking about the Volvolini?
The old girl. Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah. She gets like I don't even know if it's a chainsaw. It looks like it's just something that stabs her straight through one side of the neck into the neck. So it's like, ow, like, cause she doesn't. She dies like very slowly. I think she even does a couple more things. Maybe she gets in like one or two more kills. I can't remember. But I was like, yeah, like she just kind of like stops talking. So I'm like, I guess it just like barely missed a jugular, but she's still bleeding out. But like maybe it sliced her vocal cords. I was like, oh, that's a hard death though. I like that character a lot.
Yeah, I like how she reaches for the seeds in the back seat. It's awesome. But there's also this guy as well. Like, I don't know, this guy's scary, man. This is the guy that shoots Max in the face with that crossbow, kind of like an arm-mounted crossbow, and like Max sees the vision of the girl and he puts his hand up. This guy with the black mask, but on the back of the mask is this kind of like doll head. Just like, what the fuck? What is that?
Maybe a little throwback to that crazy mask thing that guy wore like above his head in Thunderdome.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
right.
talking about? He wore like that, like the doll mask on that like stick.
It's super scary because his eyes are super wide, like he opens them like all the way, and I'm just like, damn.
They like stabbed that guy in the face with a bullet.
Yeah, that's what the old bird does, Colin, before she dies.
Oh, okay.
It would have been it would have been awesome if they stabbed him in the face with that bullet and then hit the bullet.
That's badass. Look, dude, one of my favorite like little details, there's one guy here that Max hunts down. He's got a give way sign and he uses it as a shield. Oh, love that detail, man.
Yeah, I like that because it's also one of the only characters that bothers to fucking carry a shield anywhere. Like the only person who's like, yeah, I kind of don't want to die by the end of this. Like, I know there's a good chance, but you know, if it's preventative, I mean, fuck, come on.
Right. So, Black Mask manages to stab Furiosa.
Ooh,
bit of a damn. He just sneaks up there, and she's struggling to hold on, even though with a metal arm, it's just like the pain's just trying to hurt. And I love her looking over, man. She sees Zoe Kravitz in Joe's car, and this is kind of like that scene, like, you know, you get in every climax of the movie where you think, you know, the good guys are gonna lose, right? Like, because the music's telling you as well, like, it's a slow violin, and man, but the chase just keeps on raging. Like, this entire final climax sequence is just absolutely beautiful. The next big thing to happen is, like, Slit gets stuck between the People Eater's massive truck and the war rig, and he just goes flying. And like you said, Floyd, in that, I guess, 3D sort of like moment of him just screaming like towards the camera.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not a fan of that, really, but yeah. So Max does this weird ass flip onto the People Eater's truck. Do you notice that?
Yeah, like Nux kicks him and helps him.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I still don't know about that, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'll let it go because there's so much cool shit around it. And Max breaks his way into the People Eater's car, and the People Eater gets fucked up.
Yeah, well, hell yeah, dude. It's like the only obese person I've seen in these 4 movies. I guess people have a lot of sodium in them. I don't know. This guy's fucking disgusting.
Yeah, he's got some kind of like foot problem.
3-piece suit with the nipples cut out, the nipple ring?
Yeah, and it just randomly cut to him rubbing his nipples at some point.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, dude.
Yeah, I'm like that was earlier. I'm like, dude, why are you getting off on this? Like, is that what's happening? But I do love the People Eaters. Like the truck just pulls forward. It like you see part of it's on fire. And man, like everything's just ramping up. Like I'm sweating just watching this. Like this is a beautiful like piece of tension, man. The People Eater takes some bullets, love it, and Max escapes the People Eater's truck just in time as it blows up. A beautiful explosion, dude. He's up on the polecat, and
yeah, it's a nice shot.
This is actually Tom Hardy, by the way, on the polecat, kind of like getting dragged along the road there, about to get dragged. That's actually him, which is cool. And yeah, the cool shot of him going up as the People Eater's car, like the truck just blows up. So George Miller was like, I love the way they blew this up. You know, all the tendrils, like he literally used that word, tendrils, coming away from the truck was awesome. But yeah, beautiful bit of explosion, dude. And we see the Rock Riders see that explosion. They don't do much at this point, but yeah, just the fact that they're seeing it. And Max jumps onto the doof wagon and has a fight with this guy, right? What do you think of old Doof Warrior?
No, which one's Duff Warrior?
He's the guitarist.
Oh,
the guitarist.
Okay, cool.
That's his official name.
Yeah, I like the fact that he just kind of keeps playing, and like even though Max is not using him as like a human shield, he just kind of bounces him back with him. I like that it doesn't really like at first it's not really like just like an all out like brawl, you know. And I think he's one of the more interesting characters. Like when they get to like a slow point, he's literally just like dun 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 dun, like these real slow, and then when they pick up again, he just picks up the beat like right away. I gotta say, after about 48 hours in the middle of the Fallout wasteland, I would eventually be like, dude, I need some kind of like ulterior motivation, because this whole like spray paint Valhalla bullshit is not fucking cutting it.
Right, you're gonna have to up my pay.
I guess we've reached a point where gas apparently isn't an issue at all, seeing that he's constantly blowing like a flame out the end of this guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah, that never occurred to me, actually. Yeah,
there's so much stuff. Because that's one thing some people did complain about in the Mad Max game. Was you just go and kind of like free these strongholds and stuff, and every time you walk in, your ammo belt is full, your water's full, your gasoline's full, you know, and you can just fast travel to these places and completely fill it up. And it's like, well, that's not really Mad Max though. Like that's not the survival way about it. Like, if you want to play like that, Fallout has a great setting on there called survival mode, and you have to eat water, and you have to eat water. You have to eat food. You have to drink water. Yeah, you have to eat water. You have to freeze it and then bite it off in little bitty chunks. No, you actually have to like drink water and eat food, and you make your own ammo, and you have to sleep, and you can't sleep in a sleeping bag on the ground or you get diseases. You have to sleep on a bed with legs. It's like, holy shit. Like it gets really detailed. But But yeah, apparently that's not a problem in this world anymore. This whole thing of, oh, well, it's gasoline, it's gasoline, it's gasoline. Well, not really anymore, because we kind of need to figure out a way to like manufacture this stuff. Or eventually, yeah, the fact that we have like 80 cars in every movie is going to stop making sense and where there's no gas left.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for games it's a little different because you kind of have to balance the fun factor of it. Like
Right.
you can't be too realistic, or a lot of gamers will be put off. Like you can't have this massive scarcity of fuel. I'm sure you can have it in like a harder difficulty and shit, but I think for games it's a little different. But yeah, for the movie, Floyd, I definitely see your point, dude. It is a little weird, and it didn't really occur to me till now. But hey, I still fucking love this movie.
Oh, me too.
But basically, this is kind of like our final fight, right? Like you got Rictus, the big unit. This guy could have played Humongous if that was remade, right?
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
And basically he's having a fisticuffs with Max, and holy shit, this whole kind of like melee, if you will. So Furiosa is going against the stunt coordinator for the movie, one of the war boys, and this entire sequence just kind of ramps up. Basically, you get Furiosa, who gets thrown to the side of Joe's car. She sneaks up and she wedges the harpoon between his mask and a wheel, and holy shit! Can you imagine what this guy's face would look like?
Oh, dude. Like,
yeah.
I love the fact that they don't really show it right away. Like you just kind of let your mind wander to what this shit looks like.
Right, totally. Like we don't see it fully till later, and even then it's very quick.
Right.
But yeah, there goes Joe. See ya, God. There goes the fucking god of the war boys, right? I love Zoe Kravitz just spitting on his face. By the way, this entire sequence, Floyd, was the one that I was talking about that was filmed at Penrith Lakes. This is this is where it's 20 minutes away from me. So this is all basically a quarry, and this flipping of the war rig happened right there, actually. So in the behind the scenes footage of the Blu-ray, you see the New South Wales fire department like waiting on the wings as this guy Lee Adamson like gets into the war rig, and he's just like ready to do this crazy stunt, dude, because they could only do this once, and this stunt had to go correctly. This truck had to flip exactly exactly correctly as possible, and it was crazy just how they pulled this off. So basically, Lee Adamson, what they did was they split the cab in half. They had a dummy of Nux in the left-hand seat, and they had the Lee Adamson, the stunt driver, on the other seat, and he's obviously like caged up and like all harnessed and shit, like he's all safe. And basically they flip the truck, and you see George Miller back in the control booth, and he starts freaking out because he sees like a bald kind of like head just start like peeking through the sunroof of the truck, and as the like cab's sort of spinning, he thinks that Lee Adamson has like scraped his head out of the sunroof.
Yeah.
And yeah, like George Miller just like gets out, like he leaves, he like throws down the headphones, and he runs out to the site where the New South Wales fire department are like trying to help Lee Adamson out. And Lee Adamson gets out, and he's just like, hey, I'm all good. And George Miller's like, holy shit, I forgot that we had a Nux fucking dummy in there. Pretty cool, dude. But yeah, this entire like last sort of sequence is fantastic, man. I love Rictus holding up the fucking engine like a Superman. Holy shit.
Yeah. How
powerful is this guy?
That's the remember if you listen to the Road Warrior episode, the one scene I did not like was when Humongous actually broke a chain with his hands. I think this is the equivalent of that, him pulling the engine out of the vehicle. I mean,
yeah, that's definitely fair. That's consistent.
That is fair. But yeah, man, Nux flips the war rig, and it is beautiful as it goes topsy-turvy, and the doof wagon comes crashing in. This is the one that was conducted by Guy Norris. So basically what they had was they had like what they call squibs in each of the amplifiers, so everything would come like flying out. And obviously the guitar is CGI, and the steering wheel is CGI, but everything else is real. It was filmed with a Phantom camera, which shoots at 300 frames per second. Like everything kind of coming in the screen. It was fantastic. But yeah, man, that's our climax. And I love this kind of like next shot. Everyone's just riding off into the sunset in Joe's car. It's great. But Furiosa's dying, isn't she, Colin?
Yeah, and I love how this comes back from. This is really good setup and payoff. Coming back from something that we've forgotten about. It's a 2-hour-long movie. That we see him become like a universal donor in like the first 15 minutes, and we haven't really seen anything else about it since. So it's really good payoff, and it makes sense. She's bleeding to death. Now, what is it exactly that Max does? Is he like stab her like an air hole in the side of her lungs, or is I think her lungs might be like filling up with fluid or something. I wasn't really sure if he was like poking something to like drain it, or if he was just giving her like more like space to breathe in a way or something.
Yeah, I assume that he's draining her lungs.
Okay,
that's what I thought too.
That's my thought.
Because you kind of hear like a puncturing noise.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gotta be fucking painful.
Yeah. At this point, because I usually watch these movies with my dad before we podcast, and my dad was like, "But how?" Like like the movie was so clever. He's just like, "But how did he know her blood type?" And I'm like, "Universal donor." That's why. Yeah, pretty cool, man. Like you said, Colin, great setup, great payoff, and
I am O negative, by the way. I'm a universal donor.
Oh, nice. I know who I'm calling.
Yeah, the American, what is it? The blood drive. I can't think of Red Cross. The American Red Cross. They call me constantly, wanting me to donate blood.
You're a hero, dude. I still have yet to donate blood.
The main thing too about O negative. I mean, obviously, it's a universal donor for emergencies, is when they don't have time to test blood types, but it's also for newborns. So when they don't know what the blood type is, O negative can be used at any time.
Nice.
That's cool, dude. Max. My name is Max. That's my name, which is obviously a callback to the start where he wouldn't give his name. But yeah, they arrive back at the Citadel and promptly show off Joe's dead fucking corpse. Holy shit. Mouth agape, I guess. Tongue sticking out. There's a bit of a revolution, isn't there?
Yeah, I wonder what happened to the other brother, Rictus's brother. Do they ever really show it? I think it's just kind of implied, like they all kind of surround him and look at him and he starts looking real nervous, but I don't remember seeing anything actually happen to him.
They don't explicitly show it, but I'm assuming like he was given to the people. It's just kind of like, let's kill this fucker.
Right, yeah.
Situation.
That's kind of what I took away from it.
Yeah. This ending doesn't really need to tell you much. Like I love that the crowd's chanting, let them up. And they drive Joe's car onto the lift and they ascend, and man, I love the way this movie ends, dude. Like it's just there's no fucking around. Like the music, like I love the positive vibe of the music, the drums, it's awesome. Love Furiosa looking down at Max, who's disappearing into the crowd like he does. Like he's a drifter who just helps, settlements and whoever he can find along the way begrudgingly, but he eventually does it, and he disappears into the crowd.
Indeed.
And boom, that is Mad Max Fury Road.
Nice.
Holy shit, I'm out of breath. Dude, holy shit, man, I can't believe we just covered Mad Max Fury Road. That was a movie I've been wanting to cover for a very long time now, and I'm super, super glad that we covered it, man. Holy shit. We do have a few comments for Fury Road.
Now, before we do that, I want to talk about this feral kid thing, because
here we go.
I'm sure you guys, Floyd, you know about this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I do think it's interesting because, like, was that the intention, like, when it was written? No, not really, but I think that's what makes these things a lot more special, when it's actually not something that's intentional, but there's enough evidence there to kind of like, oh, that's plausible, maybe. Like, there's some interesting stuff, like the fact that, he sees like a little girl and not a boy, but he sees this girl like repeatedly. Like, I get those images that we see at first are of people that he's failed, but we repeatedly see the same person, which I thought was really interesting. And then not only that, when literally when they're doing when they're doing that tattoo on Max's back, it says like feral on it, which is, he is kind of like feral, but like some people have said, because he says at the end of Road Warrior, I went on to lead the tribe and blah, blah, blah. Some people are saying like, what if, like this great northern tribe that he goes and he goes to found, what if like all of this stuff is actually like these things are actually something that his tribe would have planted, and then Morton Joe came in and took over, and it just became like got taken away from them, and this this northern village was like destroyed, and then Max just becomes this like crazy feral like motherfucker. Now there's a lot of like holes in it, obviously, because it's like, dude, where do you get another V8 interceptor like that? But I mean, eventually you kind of have to, because it gets destroyed, and I don't think he doesn't have the interceptor in Thunderdome, does he, Floyd?
No, I don't believe it makes I don't believe it makes an appearance in that.
So at some point he's going to have to.
But what about the jacket?
Yeah, the jacket's another one. It's like, well, he's got the exact same jacket. That's again where it gets like loose. Some people are like, well, the feral kid is just like emulating everything that the Max does, down to like the one sleeve gone, the jacket. Like, I think that's really loose. I don't really buy that. But the thing that I do buy is the fact that he has the goddamn music box. It's like, dude, that's big. That's big. Like that's we physically saw him give that to the feral kid in the second movie. So like, I think it's interesting. I also think the feral kid kind of looks like Tom Hardy is like a little kid. Like I could see it more. But it's also like, look at the world around them.
You're saying that Tom Hardy looks feral?
Yeah, Tom Hardy looks like a feral kid. If you look at the world around them, like look at Road Warrior versus like Fury Road. Now, Fury Road's only supposed to be technically like a few years after like Thunderdome, like George Miller said. Like that's why he has been really wishy-washy on it. He's like, well, it's like a reimagining, it's like a revisiting. It's not a remake, it's not a reboot. It's just kind of like picking up where we left off, and maybe it's a few years later, and the world has just gotten so much worse. And I was like, man, I feel like this is like years after Thunderdome, like 25-ish years after or after Road Warrior, just because like there's a lot of stuff, like the fact that he never gives his name, and also when they're like, what's your name, he's like, Max, it's Max. Like he's nodding, like he's having to like assure himself, like, yeah, I'm Max, that's my name, I'm Max. Like I think it's an interesting theory. That's definitely not what was written in mind. George Miller is really nice about it, by the way. They brought it up to him on like IGN or Nerdist, and he threw like a bunch of plot holes at it. He was like, well, doesn't he go on to be the leader of the Northern Tribe? And he's like, well, what if this happened, and all this shit happening is what turns him like feral at the beginning of Fury Road. And George Miller's like, you know what? It's just like Freddie Mercury said about Bohemian Rhapsody. It's like people kept asking him what it's about, and he's like, you know what? If you hear it in there, then it's in there. I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. Like, it's nice that he's like somewhat cool about it. There's also like the theory that Max is like the angel of death or something like that. Which is like you have like all these different, the horsemen of one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which is a pretty interesting one. I mean, it's pretty like nothing really there to argue with. It's just kind of like more symbolic than anything. But there's some pretty cool stuff. I personally, I like thinking that this is the feral kid. I was like, this is kind of interesting, because like this world feels so much older, and Max hasn't gotten any older, and that's the only thing that kind of takes me out of it. So like sometimes I like to subscribe to that theory, and sometimes I don't. But either way, it's still kind of fun to like chase your tail around that maypole, Interesting.
Because I honestly heard about that feral kid sort of theory literally this week. It wasn't something that
nice.
It wasn't something that I'd really heard about. I don't really know if I fully subscribe to it. I just think it's...
Oh, me neither. No.
I just think there are a lot of things that are reaching a little bit, and I'm not sure if look, George Miller is a very fucking creative, and he's a mastermind, right? But I don't know if that's what he intended.
No, for sure, like didn't intend that. But I still, it's fun, and it's interesting when you like take a step back and look at it. I'm like, oh, that is kind of cool. Now, if it's not true, there are some like very weird inconsistencies. Like, why does he still have the music box? And even the music box plays a different song. So it's like, dude, Max just found a different music box later on. Like, that's a much more simpler explanation than this kid like found all the exact same clothes and has the exact same limp that he has in like Road Warrior and shit. I'm like, dude, yeah, I don't subscribe to it, but it's kind of fun to think about.
As the Mad Max aficionado, Floyd, what do you think about that?
I'm kind of in the same camp. I like to talk about it. I like to consider it and look at the kind of the clues or what have you to it. At the end of the day, I think probably not. I don't think it fits in there. If you really look at the timeline and look at some of the clues within the movie, I think it's probably more evidence to suggest that it's not the feral kid. Now, would I mind there being a movie movie where that feral kid comes back and he's in some sort of character in it, I would love that.
Yay! It's
Hell yeah,
all
dude.
connected, as our friend Dean would say. But yeah, I think it'll have to be clever. Like, you'd need to be clever about it. Don't shove it in my face, you know. But dude, that's fucking Road Warrior. I realized that we already read our our comment from on the other episode, but I'll read it here anyway, because most of it relates to Road Warrior. Relates to Fury Road. So it's from Nathan Burkhardt. Thanks for commenting, Nathan. Really appreciate your comments, man. This is a good sized comment, dude. Thanks so much. Hold on. These are two of my favorite movies. Talking about Road Warrior. I was mistakenly worried that Fury Road would mess up the series, but I think it fits right in with Road Warrior and Beyond Thunderdome. I feel I have to expand on that. I didn't base my worry on the fact that there was a female lead, like a lot of men's rights people that got mad. I mean, I was afraid that they would try too hard to appeal to a newer, more sensitive audience that is less likely to disengage their brain, suspend their disbelief, and enjoy the over-the-top, almost cartoonish violence and explosions this series is known for. They definitely did not tone it down. On the contrary, they completely ramped everything up. Fire tornado, face ripping, giant machine guns, dirt bike jumping, and shooting. Dude, wholeheartedly agree. We talked about it earlier with, Furiosa being more or less the main lead, but they didn't compromise anything. Not in my opinion, anyway. Patrick Harrington, is it bad that I've only seen Fury Road?
Yes, Patrick. Yes, it is.
Of course, Floyd, you went on to explain, what the plot of Mad Max 1 was for Patrick. But yeah, man, like that's it. That's fucking Fury Road. Holy shit! I can't believe we did it, guys. Before we head off, do you guys have anything else to say before we peace out here?
Floyd, you're the guest. You go first.
If I listed my favorite Mad Max, if I were to rank them, Road Warrior would be number one, and then Fury Road would probably be my number two. Even though I do like Mad Max the original a lot more than most people that I talk to, so they're very close. And then the final one would be Thunderdome. So Fury Road, again, as I mentioned off the top, was an awesome surprise, or not necessarily a surprise, but very well received for me. I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoy it for what it is. It's simple, but on the other end of it, it's very complex. The characters are very complex. This world and this universe that George Miller and these actors and everyone in the cast and crew created is something that really sticks with you, and it's effective. Just can't say enough about it. Really enjoy the movie. Enjoy all the practical effect that we've talked about. I enjoy where it took the character, and really looking forward to seeing these sequels that are supposed to be coming.
Nice. Colin?
Man, I got nothing. No, I'm just kidding. I really like this movie. I agree with Floyd. It's my second favorite behind Road Warrior. I really hope that this lawsuit with George Miller gets wrapped up so we can get these other two installments. They wrote so much for Fury Road in the script that they actually had enough for multiple scripts left over. So I'm curious as to what those other scripts will be like, and I really want to hear those stories. I want a Furiosa solo thing. Like, I really want that. Apparently there was even talk of doing like a Furiosa anime at one point. So I'm even down to, like they're doing this Blade Runner series on Adult Swim as an anime. I'm like, dude, give me a Furiosa one. I'm cool with that. And I just hope that this is not, I hope we don't have to go another, I think Thunderdome was like 87 or something. And then we've got Fury Road coming out like 30 years later. I'm like, man, like I really hope it's not that long before we get another Mad Max movie again. I would give it like an 8.5 out of 10 just for myself. I think there's some cool parts of it. 8.5 to 9. It's definitely one of the best movies that I've seen in a long time. And I mean, I definitely own it. I got it on fucking Blu-ray. And I had a blast covering it. And thanks for coming on, Floyd.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate coming on. I appreciate had a blast doing both of these movies. And my last parting shot or suggestion for Mr. George Miller is the next villain's got to be Vernon Wells.
Oh my God, that'd be awesome.
That'll be cool. But yeah, Colin, like you said, a couple of sequels have been, planned. Like you said, Miller said that he wanted to release two more after this. Originally, one was titled Mad Max Furiosa. and then he kind of changed that, like, for the fifth film in the franchise to be called Mad Max: The Wasteland, which is pretty cool. But yeah, like you said, dude, $7 million, I guess, about a bonus. There was a bonus that didn't get paid to him, and he's been locked up in a lawsuit. So yeah, hopefully we get that sequel sooner than later, George, because you are getting a little long in the tooth, my friend, which is terrible to say, but I'm sorry, it's a reality. I mean, you weren't that young when you made this movie, dude. So.
Right.
But yeah, man, I can't rank the movies like you, Floyd. I can only give them scores because I haven't seen all of them. But yeah, if Road Warrior was a 9, then this is a 10. I absolutely adore this movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. Probably not likely to change until we get a sequel for this movie. So yeah, dude, Floyd, thank you so much for joining us on Midnight Double Feature, man. Like we can't thank you enough. You've provided so much insight to Mad Max and the world of Mad Max that George Miller's created. Because neither of us are really Mad Max aficionados, so it is really, really awesome to get someone who knows their shit on here. So thanks so much for that, dude. Really appreciate it.
I'm glad that I was able to take my 20 years of really unnecessary Mad Max knowledge and be able to actually use it for something productive.
It's not always unnecessary. But anyway, guys, we're going to get out of here. Before we do, though, I'm just going to plug our socials. So we're obviously Midnight Double Feature. We've got 2 pages on Facebook. So that's Midnight Double Feature. And then we've got our after party. So that's The After Party. We're also on Instagram, which is at Midnight Double Feature. We have a Twitter handle, which is at MDF Pod. Be sure to rate and review us on iTunes. And be sure to rate and review The Pop List on iTunes, because Floyd's podcast is absolutely fantastic. Definitely check it out. That's The Pop List. Highly recommend it. But other than that, guys, without any further ado, we are out of here. We will see you next time.